Biden and Kamala did not do well. Obviously, Biden couldn't do it well because he couldn't communicate at all. That was honestly, that's the biggest mess up of all.
We beat Medicare. What? What? I remember watching that, being like, "You lost." I feel like, it's really bad to say to Americans politically, like, you can't go on the debate stage and be like, "Americans, you're gonna have to tighten your wallet."
Greed. The corporate profits was taking all. Like that was part of the huge chunk of inflation. Hey, the big corporations are fucking you. And by the way, we've been doing a good job at trying to get them to stop fucking you. But by the way, this is where it comes down to me for the messaging thing. Biden couldn't articulate anything.
But how do you articulate? People don't know GDP. You
don't have to go to GDP. You could just be like, listen, the wages have not gone up. We tried. There's 2 senators that are turncoats. This is what I hate about the Democrats. This is what I hate about Obama, is that they were not good ever at going ahead and using the bully pulpit presidents, where you get up and you use the position of being president and say, they're fucking up. Even our own team is fucking up. Manchin, you're fucking up. Sinema, you fucking turncoat.
If he stayed in, he would have done better.
No, he would have lost.
I think he would have lost harder. More. Yeah, I think so.
I also just don't think Democrats pull from Republicans as much as they think they can.
They don't.
I think it was like 5% of Republicans voted for Kamala. I don't even know if it was that much.
Where they kind of maybe brainwashed themselves into thinking they were going to walk away with this. I think they got really excited in July about the switcheroony. And they had the momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, they took that assassination attempt and stole that momentum from him.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what his team then did to her.
I think people felt like, well, I'm hurting right now economically. I'm not making...
Are they, though?
I think there is some argument to that people do feel crunch because
they do.
Inflation went up, and the wages, even though wages overall went up, not everybody got the benefit of those wages. That's why, I don't get why we forgot. So that was a fun week. Well, this has been a weird month, weird year. This is Jason Scott, everybody.
Allegedly.
I
don't know.
Do you not want me to use your real name now?
That's already not my real name.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh, wait, damn it. I just gave it away.
Well, now I don't know. Now I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. So we're both comics in the North Jersey, Rockland, New York City. Yeah, the air quote thing. This has been a weird election.
Was it an election?
Was it an election?
No,
yeah,
it wasn't.
That's all we needed is more conspiracy theories following an election.
There are people out there being like, how did 13 million people just not sit home? And I'm like, okay, they're still counting votes allegedly, so that's not accurate anymore. She did a lot better popular-wise, but it's just not a conspiracy theory. Just people, what's the phrase in drag? The Republicans turned that pussy out. That's what I can say, which is an ironic turn of phrase here.
And here's what I'll say about that. I don't even know if the Republicans turned all the people out. They just turned out what they got, right? Like they turned out the same amount that they got last time.
Yeah. A little better.
A little, like marginally better.
Yeah.
Not the amount you would expect going from like 4 years later, though, when you expect population to keep growing.
And if you also consider the new voters that they got, the overwhelming new registered voters that they dominated with, of course, against all other categories, it really just shows you if they didn't have those new voters, they might have lost votes from the previous time.
Oh, they did. Well, because people also die.
Oh, because 1.3 million didn't survive the last administration of his. Correct.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like he
allegedly.
Like this is the weird thing with it. Is like he lost voters because people like his constituency was older. But he had to have grown voters in the younger demographic, and that's what people are saying right now. I don't know to what degree. That was always my question. I knew there was some reason we were seeing a lot of like Republican young men, like conservative Gen Zers. I think there was an article that came out like a year or two ago that Gen Z men were more conservative than millennial men at the same time.
I don't know if the word is conservative.
Well, yeah. That's the weird thing is you meet a lot of them and they all kind of agree with like the policy stuff,
right?
But it's the personality stuff. It's
the personality, the celebrity of the thing. It's a familiarity with the human before the politics.
Well, that's why I thought Trump won the first time. He had the name recognition. That's
Correct.
why he kept winning. And honestly, if you look back at all the primaries of the last like 15, 20 years, the person who wins is the person that people just know.
You know, it's funny you bring up those primaries because I rewatched that cycle's primaries, just clips and bits. Wow, they used to yell at each other in those Republican primaries. Just the yelling that went on, I forgot. And I'm just like, yep, no change from now.
Well, now they all fall in line. Like, there's not a resistance to him. All the people who resisted.
In terms of his yelling, I meant.
Of his yelling
Yeah,
or there?
his.
Well, he liked yelling at that point. But he felt like a slam comic. He felt like a roast comic at one point. And I think that people were attracted to that. It felt like a tell it like it is. It would, that's why I think like a lot of people who are doing like I think that the one issue that Kamala had was that she was not very good off the cuff.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
With these to the American people. It's like it's not how the everyman populist approach that he takes is. With where he talks is like you're garbage, you're a pig, you're a Marxist, and people talk like that in real. Unfortunately, people do talk like that.
Yeah.
When just even joking and fucking around with each other, like people just talk crazy like that. Not crazy, but just like casually.
Yeah, it very like they're not like being able to break things down to colloquial terms, be able to break it down to an individual level of like, this is the thing that I think that Biden and Kamala did not do well. Obviously, Biden couldn't do it well because he couldn't communicate at all. That was honestly the biggest mess up of all.
We beat Medicare. What? What? I remember watching that, being like, you lost. You lost before that statement, and you definitely lost after it. I just remember, and even the look on his face was like, oh. And then I was like, maybe he shouldn't run.
No, everybody. Well, and for another month, we had to deal with that terror. It didn't happen overnight. It took a few weeks.
Do you think if he stayed in, he would have done better?
No, he would have lost. I think he would have lost
harder.
more.
Yeah, I think so too.
They had internal polling that showed that he would have lost by like 400 electoral votes. Like he would have possibly lost New York and New Jersey.
I don't know if it would have been that far, because people do vote on party lines, and
they do.
And I think a lot of those people you saw in public being like, I'm a Republican, but I won't vote for him. I don't think that actually ended up happening. I think that the secret hidden Trump vote from 16, it's 24's version, that is people that said they were going to do that, but then they got the ballot in their hands like, for example, me, I like voted down ballot blue.
Yeah.
Okay, in New York. There's one person in a race that is a Democrat who has destroyed the economics of where I went to public school. Mm-hmm. Right after I graduated. It started its decline then. And horrible candidate. Horrible. But just like a Republican would be like, I don't trust the other side. I could not in that one race make that break from the party because I just don't trust what the other party is selling me either. So I get where that might have happened, and I think that did happen.
I also just don't think Democrats pull from Republicans as much as they think they can.
They don't.
I think it was like 5% of Republicans voted for Kamala. I don't even know if it was that much.
I think that the polls were so wrong about it being not a popular dead heat, because that they were kind of right about this 48-50, 50-48 split back and forth on every swing state, but it wasn't like that in every swing state.
No.
It was more point spreads than that, and I think where they got it wrong was the GOP got it wrong, because dozens and dozens and dozens of new pollsters that came out for this cycle were heavily GOP funded.
Yeah.
GOP funded, and they weren't verifying their data. They weren't verifying where they got it from. So theirs is skewed more positively.
Yeah.
And I think that the Democrats skewed theirs way more positively in the adverse effect, where they kind of maybe brainwashed themselves into thinking they were going to walk away with this. I think they got really excited in July about the switcheroony, which I call it a switcheroony because it is. I mean, she's totally in line to take that ticket spot for the nomination. She's part of that ticket that people voted for, those 18 million primary votes. So I think that once that excitement came to such a fevered pitch, and they had the momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, they took that assassination attempt and stole that momentum from him.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what his team then did to her with the McDonald's story. If you can take the narrative and make it yours, genius.
I also just don't think she separated herself from Biden enough.
Not enough, no.
And I think that hurt. I think people felt like, well, I'm hurting right now economically. I'm not making...
Are they, though?
I think there is some argument to that people do feel crunch because
inflation
went up, and the wages, even though wages overall went up,
right,
not everybody got the benefit of those wages. That's why, I don't get why we forgot minimum wage as an argument.
Because the corporations...
Well, yeah, the corporate owners
lobbied and propagated this idea that you put more money in the people and your employees, then your prices go up. Except what happened was the prices went up and the money didn't go more to the people, and we did it like that anyway. So that's the argument that should have been made, and I don't know why that, I agree with you, got forgotten. I think part of what also got forgotten was at the debates, he kept talking about every time groceries. This was a referendum a bit on the retail corporate sector.
Yeah.
There should have been a rallying against the grocery industry, being like, These are his buddies charging you well over inflation. And then no one ever said Kroger's guy.
Yeah.
Their CEO admitted to charging what for eggs and bread and milk, I believe. Maybe just
Well,
eggs and
eggs.
milk.
Well, I know the eggs.
Way over
They already
inflation.
got hit with one antitrust lawsuit. This is actually what's going to really
But
mess
they
people up.
don't do anything. It's
No. The antitrust lawsuits are different than the SEC lawsuits. Antitrust is a way, like, first off, it's a way more integrated litigation. It's more adversarial. This is Lena Khan. You might have heard of her.
Okay.
She was on Daily Show. She's been on Jon Stewart's podcast. She gets talked about a lot. Bernie Sanders has promoted her a lot.
okay.
And she was part of Biden's administration that went after a lot of these monopolies that have been formed, and basically was trying to break up some of the ones that have already been formed, and then also trying to prevent the one like the Kroger merger, like things like that, where we're going to go ahead and make prices go up because you need competition. This is the thing that, like, this used to be basics capitalism 101, not socialism, but basics of capitalism was you need leverage, you need competition. That's also why minimum wage works well, because now you have the leverage to boost everybody's wages, right? Oh, I'm not going to work this $25 an hour job. I can go work at ShopRite for $20 an hour. I can go work at McDonald's for $15 an hour.
Correct. What's really funny is they say that it'll raise their bottom line, they'll lower their bottom line, and it'll raise their overhead. And I get that, but where do these companies think that people's extra money is going to go to? The companies, when they have to buy shit that we don't really necessarily need. You know, and it's funny because when I say, are they really economically hurting? Like, no one doubts that things cost more than they did.
Yeah.
In the past. I also think that there's some type of cultural thing that's not happening that used to happen. Well, no, it does still happen now. We always make fun of, like, the boomers being like, I bet they're still mad that milk's not 25 cents a gallon. Some people my age, and I'm guilty of it too all the time, I'm like thinking of, I compare to gas prices from like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just not realistic. And I think that we have to stop doing that as a culture. You know, I also don't see, you know, things do cost more. I see people taking vacations.
Yeah.
Buying iPads for all 3 kids. What is it, 2.8 kids everyone's got?
Yeah.
I see.
I don't know. That number's going down, I think. That's the
I don't
problem, because
know.
less people are having kids because, like, millennials can't afford to do
Correct.
it.
There's that too. I think that there's no adjustments, and I'm not one to tell anybody what to do or how to live. I make adjustments for myself and me, myself, and I. But I'll tell you right now, I hope he doesn't collapse everything economically, but I will be fine. I have no kids. I can make adjustments. I don't mind eating broccoli, brown rice, and chicken every day for the rest of my life.
Well, that's the thing.
That sucks, but I'm prepared.
That's the thing. I have the same, like, kind of taste. I'm a very cheap taste person.
Right.
Like, I'll go to the chicken and rice cart. I'll go do it. Like, those are like my going out is the $10 thing, not the $30 thing. So for me,
Oh, don't even get me started about that.
yeah, like the only, like, so that kind of stuff isn't going to really directly affect me, but it is going to affect individuals that, like,
Yes.
I know.
And you know what? It is going to, you know, I personally believe, like, juices and sodas, that's the first thing you could eliminate from your budget.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's really bad to say to Americans politically, like, you can't go on the debate stage and be like, Americans, you're going to have to tighten your wallet. Because nobody wants to hear that right now.
When, again, this is where the wage stuff comes right back into it, because it's like, all right, like, the corporate profits were, they like, the amount of, like, corporate greed, the corporate profits was taking all, like, that was part of the huge chunk of inflation. And nobody talked about it. Like, they had a villain. Hey, the big corporations are fucking you. And by the way, we've been doing a good job at trying to get them to stop fucking you. But by the way, this is where it comes down to me for the messaging thing. Biden couldn't articulate anything. Like, you watched the debate, you watched, and Kamala was okay.
But how do you articulate? People don't know GDP. I don't even.
You don't have to go to GDP. You could just be like,
I
listen,
don't
the
even
wages
know.
have not gone up. We tried. There's 2 senators that are turncoats. This is what I hate about the Democrats. This is what
They're
I
not
hate about
tough.
Obama, is that they were not good ever at going ahead and using the bully pulpit presidency. They were never good. It was the one thing I was hoping that Hillary would have been good at if she ended up winning, or Kamala, because Biden and Obama didn't do this, where you get up and you use the position of being president and say, they're fucking up. Even our own team is fucking up. Manchin, you're fucking up. Sinema, you fucking
Manchin,
turncoat.
Don't even get me started. Well, Manchin is out of a job now.
Oh, well, I mean, he's an independent now, too, isn't he?
He's technically. I
Both of them left. They were like, we don't want to be associated with Bidenomics and stuff.
Oh,
even though
stop it.
that's the
It's
thing that's
two of
actually
them.
held up the economy for the last 4 years.
Well, he might. They say between the deportations,
Yeah.
and the tariffs and the trade war that he's about to keep having going.
Or how about the SAVE plan?
No, don't even get me started.
people
The
who
Chips
are-
and Science Act.
The one with the
That too. It's gonna be.
Well, yeah,
done.
that's going to be a problem too. The CHIPS Act. They're talking.
He
getting
might
rid
just
of.
listen. He might just do what he did with Obama economically and just sit down
Yeah.
and be like, this is what we have. Oh shit, this has been working, and then be like, 90% keep, 10% get rid of, and then we take the credit. That's what that I'm convinced economically. That's what might happen. But the plans that the two of them had were vastly different. And this whole thing about all the global economists are lying. I hope they're all wrong. If he does what he's going to do, I hope they're all wrong. Why would we want that to be right?
I just don't think they're. I don't think they're wrong. I think he's the one who's wrong. I do think he's going to try and do some of this stuff.
They're so disorganized, though. How are they going to put people into camp? I just.
Well, no, I don't. I think that's stuff they're not going to do. You're right. They're too disorganized. That's always been the Trump problem. Is that they're not organized.
And they'll all be. And this in cabinet will be fired within 6 months and replaced.
They're not even going to make it through. Some of them might not make it through nomination. Let's talk about that. Matt Gaetz. Oh, yes, the guy who likes to bang 17-year-old girls.
Matt Gaetz,
what the heck?
Piece of shit. First of all, that is the face of pedophilia, if I ever saw it. And I hate to say that, but that's my opinion, and is my opinion alone.
No, first off, he's nobody even likes him in Congress. Like, the place
he's not in Congress now, baby.
Well, yeah,
only resigned to avoid that ethics probe.
That's the hilarious thing. He resigned to avoid getting in trouble, and
I hope he doesn't get approved now or confirmed. Excuse me. I hope he doesn't get confirmed just for that. That would be amazing. I bet you he makes a playback for his seat.
Oh, he will.
Well, it has to be filled now by law.
Well, it has to be within 6 weeks, which is why that's the argument that they were saying was, we're gonna do it. He'll drop out now, so we don't lose the.
And shame on all those people that went on TV a year ago, being like, in his own part, Mark McMullen, what's his name? Wayne McMullen, what's that guy's name from? Oh, I can't think of it. Wayne Mark.
But are you talking about Matt Gaetz, or are you talking?
Yeah, no. There's a guy that was against him. There's one guy.
There's a lot of Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, now they're backpedaling hard on that.
Ooh.
The president has the right to appoint blah 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 blah. Okay,
well, Lindsey, that's Lindsey Graham who was saying that.
Lindsey Graham.
I don't know what Trump has on Lindsey Graham.
That pocket gay Lindsey Graham.
That one I never understand, because he seems like always very much like across the aisle, like I'm very like cordial with people, but then like instantly Trump has something on that dude.
He has something on them all, because they're all the deep state that everyone has been terrified about.
That's the other thing. So this is the thing I don't get. I'll talk to like some 25-year-old or something, and this is the thing that's
because Dogecoin.
Wait a second. Hold on. We're talking about Musk and you're talking about Dogecoin and Musk and all that. Musk was the one who torpedoed Dogecoin.
Yeah.
People forget he went on SNL and was like, I don't know. I don't know what it's worth.
Remember when he was on SNL? Then they hate celebrities.
Yeah.
I don't get. I'm very confused.
Oh no, they only hate celebrities who don't agree with them.
Oh, that's right.
That's the trick. Because like that, I saw that happening when Rogan.
But wait,
because this is the thing with the Rogan stuff, and I think that people are going to want to break down all the Rogan shit. Honestly, I think Rogan's endorsement didn't do anything.
I think that the endorsement came really late.
11:30 at night the night before. Nobody fucking paid attention to that.
It makes me wonder, was that insider trading or some type of nonsense?
Know that he was gonna win?
I don't know, because he said he knew. And what was their big secret? Remember, and there's people, I don't want to do this, but
it does feel very weird. Like, I don't want to do the conspiracy.
Posting it is people posting it. Yeah. Okay, so there's a thing that was posted online on TikTok, something, I don't know, I saw it somewhere. They said it was, what's this, Starlink? Is that it?
That's his satellite company.
Okay.
Yeah.
That they saw like what they thought were Starlink satellites crashing out of the sky the night of the election, and he's like, destroying the evidence of hacking shit. And I'm not saying that that's what happened. You know what?
Well, now he's being investigated for meeting with, I forget who it was. He met with a foreign official.
He should. Well, that's the problem too. None of these unelected businessmen should be meeting with any foreign entities of any kind outside of the business sector of discussion of things.
Yeah.
If you're meeting like world leaders, there's a problem. You shouldn't be having that type of influence.
Or like when Trump was doing that with Netanyahu, like literally like 2 weeks before the election or 3 weeks before the election.
I think that's more like, and I think that makes more sense to me. That didn't actually bother me so much, because you know what? That's common. World leaders will meet with candidates slightly, and even a close election, slightly before the election, to see where they stand on, if they win, where their direction on policy regarding them goes. I think that's common, and that would make sense, because as a nation that's not ours, I would still, for my own national interest, want to know, if that person wins, where do we stand with the policies that are currently in line with us?
I mean, yeah, but there's other ways of doing that investigation. You don't have to meet with the two head leaders. Don't have to meet directly.
No,
and that's how you kind of do that stuff.
But diplomatic channels is what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
and he's not a diplomat at all of any kind. He has no clearance, no authorization, nothing. And
No.
he's foreign born, not for nothing, but they've been railing against immigrants this whole time. Great for him that he's a success story as an
Oh,
immigrant.
Elon Musk talking
Yeah,
now?
as an immigrant himself, but
Oh.
someone that should not be having this much influence in our government proceedings at all.
Oh no! Oh, forget it. Like the fact that he's so now ingrained with Trump. Although I think that's going to fall apart in 30 seconds.
He's dumping Vivek and Elon there. Apparently, it may not even be an actual government department that's official. It might just be like
Department of Government Efficiency.
sounds woefully inefficient to me.
Well, yeah, they have two leaders of that. It's Vivek and it's Elon
Well,
Musk.
if it's going to be an official thing he wants Congress to approve, which he has to get congressional approval on this, on the new department, he has to present a comprehensive plan. This is my understanding of the law, which is layman's completely. He has to provide a comprehensive plan showing X, Y, and Z, the budget, who it is, how many people they're hiring, what they're hiring for, how they're going to do this, and what exactly they're doing, and how they're going to do all of it. They're not going to do that.
No.
He's dumping the two of them there, so they will fight, and it just dissolves and goes away. Or the reverse is that it's current McCarthyism, just wrapped in a different name. So instead of the Red Scare, it's the Woke Scare. And that's what they're going to use as their official recommendation. It's going to be their HUAC. It's going to be their HUAC.
That I can't. Yeah. Honestly, that's the part that scares me the least at that point. Is if that's all it's going to go on is them trying to figure out department efficiency, which I don't. My big worry is with the general stuff everybody's been talking about. Although I don't think it ends up happening.
My understanding is the military makes its own decisions. He just gives lawful orders that they follow.
You can stop.
He can't recommend military anything. Court martial, can you?
Well, what he can do, you can't court martial him. Not like that anyway, unless he gives them a direct order and they refuse. But then they also can't follow through with the direct orders that are unconstitutional.
Right.
But also, if you're like what they can do is stop you from promotion, and then basically when you hit a certain age in the military.
Okay.
So if you're like a colonel, actually, this is the weird thing. I was in Florida, and the guy who was driving my Uber was a former colonel in the military, and he was saying like, oh, if they had moved me up to 1-star general, I could have stayed until I was 87. So there's a lot of these people who might have been like on the promotion track that he can kind of screw over, and it's like, well, we're not going to promote you. So there's those things that he can do. I'm not sure how far he's going to get away with like we're going to call all the generals, because there's a process for that stuff. There's always a process for that shit. And it's built into the system.
He wants to make that like board of people rooting out woke in the army. And I'm like, I don't even hear about the army being woke. It's so weird that they've bastardized a term from not their own background or anything.
Because is it weird? I don't know. It's
no,
not
it's not
shocking.
weird. Actually, it's not weird.
Are
no.
you forgetting the 2016 where they were calling everybody cucks and snowflakes? Like it's like that was like the amount of weird.
They're still
shit.
calling us. I'm in the middle. I just get lumped in.
They call everybody everything, and I'm like, I'm never shocked by any of it. But then there's things I go like, this guy's this kind of like this. It's always the individual ones when you find out like, oh, this person is a Trump supporter. Because you almost like you can talk to somebody and you'll be like on every issue the same.
Right.
And then you find out like, why is this person like supporting? Oh, it's the deep state. Like then all of a sudden you find out it's like
the deep state. I can't with the deep. First of all, if you're so upset about the deep state, then you should be upset about all of what he's wanting on his cabinet.
Or what he did the first 4 fucking years. Like I don't. This thing
Well,
I do not get. You guys don't remember the first 4 years. Everybody just remembers it was so nice. Well,
because it was
nice.
pre-COVID. That's it.
It was pre-COVID.
That's all they remember. It's all I'll be honest, I can't remember his first administration that well. I remember the wild nonsense here and there in bits and pieces. I was also using a lot of illegal substances at the time, so my tapping into reality was not full-on existent. However, I was tapped in enough to be like, this guy's weird. But you know what? I think it's more like we were saying before. She's not really known. That was a big issue with voters. And he's known. He's been known since decades ago.
And I think that was the thing that ultimately, like, if she was the candidate, they ran a primary and she won the primary.
She would never have won a primary.
I kind of agree. I think there would have been other people who would have stepped up.
But the Gavinator? I'm calling him that. I'm spreading that like
Gavin Newsom.
The Gavinator.
He looks like a Batman villain.
How great is the Gavinator? How great is that? Don't you love? I fucking love that.
So I think he's a lot like DeSantis.
I don't love him running. I love the name branding I'm trying to make happen here. If I can find an opportunity for me, I'm gonna do it.
We got somebody for you, Gavin, to run your campaign.
No, they wouldn't listen to a word you say to them. The Democrats do not listen. Is the big problem.
No. Well, they listened a little bit in 2020. because they did start. Like, this is the
Barely.
This is the difference between Biden and the Biden's run versus Kamala and Hillary's run, which was in 2020. Instead of swinging to the right, they swung to the left.
Yeah, well,
Biden was not pro student debt relief when he was running, and that got fucked over by the Supreme Court. And this is the thing. I was talking to somebody the other night who thought it was Biden who fucked it up.
Well, I think that the process they went through on that, I think that it's just his authorization wasn't at that level that he wanted as the president. Like their whole ruling was he went above his duties.
So here's what happened. There's two different. He tried to do it under the COVID emergency powers.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
He had the authority to do it under the Higher Education Act. He didn't do it under the Higher Education Act, and I don't know if he didn't do it under the Higher Education Act because he knew the makeup of the Supreme Court and he didn't want to get it rejected right away, and he wanted a second bite at the apple. But he did it under the COVID emergency powers, and they said you overstepped your bounds here.
So when he did it again after that, that was under a different.
That was so the SAVE plan. All the other things they've done so far were under the SAVE plan since then.
But I see even as
or under the Higher Education
Act.
As
a registered independent who tends to vote Democrat,
yeah.
tends to. You know, I thought their messaging on that wasn't clear when they're doing it again. SCOTUS said, no, they didn't get that message home. No, that's under a different act.
No, again, because they can't fucking communicate. The only person
Correct.
in that whole party that can communicate anything that they're saying is Obama and then Buttigieg. Buttigieg is actually a very good communicator. And that's the one thing I like about him a lot.
The problem is the best one to talk to the people like people to make it understandable. Not that anyone's stupid. I'm not calling anyone stupid. I don't understand their shit. Okay. Is they would never elect a gay man.
I don't know because they said they would never elect a black guy either.
They call it the butt fuck White House. What else? Booty juice Pete. Is it President Top or President Bottom? I could already hear it now.
But they did the same stuff.
They don't want to. They don't want to. America's not going to do a first gentleman that's gay.
I don't know.
I think even on that level.
I think the problem with Pete Buttigieg is that he's still too center left. He's too.
No, that's what they need.
I think they need somebody who they need somebody who's going to go out there and promote working policies.
Well,
right?
Whoever it is, whoever shapes up. First of all, you're not going to see shaping up on this like we did 4 years every time with Republicans. There's always people being 3 years into left. They're like, I'm in.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that. You will see that shape up depending on how midterms go.
I agree. I think it's going to depend on the midterms. I think they're going to win the midterms.
I think so too. This happened in 2018, and so far it's all shaping up the same way. I mean, this is literally almost going to be a cycle of repetition, and I think that, whoever runs, whoever gets the nomination, and whoever runs in the primary, their thing has to be, what about Trump when he did this?
Yeah.
And their thing will have to be every single time. I don't know, like Mariah Carey said about J-Lo. I don't know her. And just move it. But here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And here's what this guy wants to do. And these are two different plans. And here's what's going to happen based on those plans. And it's your choice. That's what they have to do. They have to present and make them have a choice and say it like that. If they keep with this, Trump is the threat to democracy.
Trump's the devil.
If you go with that, it was a winning strategy, maybe a little bit, barely in 2020.
And that's because you had a pandemic.
But because of 2024, you slow walked Merrick Garland, you lazy piece of shit, okay? Because you're mad about SCOTUS, but you got a good cushy job anyway, which you dumbass, okay? Because you slow walked that shit, and you can't say he's a threat to democracy for 2 years, for 2 whole years, and then be like, slow walk that. No, you had to do it right away if you were going to do it. And I don't know if he wouldn't have not ran, but I will tell you this, all those prosecutions backfired. I think it made him more wanting to run because it wasn't look like he was trying to win.
Well, I also think what really hurt with those prosecutions was the ones that were maybe a little bit less. I guess
the hush money could have just been ignored.
The both of the ones that New York did were, I don't think they were very popular amongst people.
It should have been 2 only, and it should have been the fraud. They should have just ignored it. As wrong as it was, they should have just ignored it.
I think
it wasn't criminal.
After the Georgia case,
yes, they should have, because
Georgia, that was a state case, and they did move forward with that.
So he can't pardon himself for that.
No.
But the problem is, that state case should have been prosecuted. When you call someone on the phone and you name the number of votes to the number, not 12,000, not 20,000, not get me a bunch, and you name it to the number, it's election interference.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple.
You're trying to go ahead and get them to find you 11,000 votes. Oh, that's very convenient. Yeah, that one. I think he
Give me the win by
absolutely should be prosecuted.
one? That's
Yeah,
crazy. No. But now nothing will happen because they'll put it on hold, or the state might just dismiss it because they can't
might.
do anything with it.
and they might say it's a speedy trial issue. That's
Well,
gonna
then
be,
they can argue it's not a speedy trial issue because you can't prosecute a sitting president.
Well, they would say, okay, well, we can prosecute you and we can suspend the sentence until after you're done being president.
Right.
That'd be the other option.
That would be, but then they're politicized. The DOJ will shut it down with Matt Gaetz. Who knows about Matt Gaetz being involved?
But I also just think the Democrats don't have people, because this is where the Joe Rogan stuff comes in, right? Because Joe Rogan used to be kind of very center.
He wasn't political at all.
He used to hate the politics stuff. That was the weird thing. He used to be like, oh, I don't want to sway elections. Like 2020, he did not have Trump or Biden on his podcast.
No.
What happened in 4 years?
There's a market to be tapped into for him.
You think it's because he saw everybody else doing it and he's like, I guess I got to do it too?
What is anything? Everything is like, why? It's money. It's money.
Yeah.
It's money. And I think he saw more of a market share that he could grab onto, and he could make his following much stronger, his fandom much bigger. And listen.
Are we going to get a President Joe Rogan in like 4 years?
You know, I was saying before, they haven't been able to replicate his personality. They're not going to be because the whole appeal of him was populist, everyman, billionaire.
Rogan might be the only one who could do that again.
Right, and I don't know if I'm
not rooting for it. Even though I might agree with him on certain issues, but here's the thing.
But that would require Rogan to basically duplicate a lot of the stuff, and I don't know if
I think Rogan could duplicate a lot of this.
I just meant in terms of the rhetoric. Who would he target? I mean, like, I couldn't even guess who anyone would target, but like,
because what worked for Trump was that his targeted message was like at least the first time in 2016.
Oh, I meant target for blame. Right now, economics is the
he's starting to
fault.
turn into Trump on that one. Did you? So he there was a thing on his podcast where he had Musk on, and also when he had Fetterman on. Which, by the way, if you're gonna have a person go out there and be your
face.
Yeah, the face of your franchise. It's not John Fetterman anymore.
Well, that was on purpose.
He can't have a conversation. I used to like Fetterman, and then he had the stroke, and then he kind of he got very dismissive of people and didn't want to engage with people on conversation, and I think
it got
very hard to deal with
not to
that.
shame anybody for their mental health. Always take care of your mental health, always, and always be open about it with who you need to be. But when he went into rehab for it, or treatment for it, treatment for depression, I was like, you're not going to be able to execute the duties of that office fully. There's just no way.
I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who are in office who aren't open with it. Like he was at least open with it.
There's a lot of mental illness in those offices.
Yeah. So I that part I don't know if I agree with. I think with him though, it's just again, he used to be a very good communicator. He used to be very much for progressive policies. He had the stroke. And things changed with him.
Yeah.
And I could still root for you as a senator, and I could still say, okay, I think you're an okay politician, but I thought at one point in time that was the future face of the franchise. He can't do that.
No,
anymore.
he can't do that. They don't have a future right now. Face right now.
AOC.
I think that's. But
I don't know if they're going to run another woman.
No, no, you're not going to see it for 20 years. 20 years at least, and it's not going to be. And if it is, it's not going to be.
And I don't even think this time was because because Kamala was a woman that she lost. I think it was literally the name recognition stuff. There's a lot of late element of it.
There's so many moving parts here, and that's why it's an electoral college map landslide bloodbath. And I think that there's so many moving parts that would account for that.
Yeah.
And I do think one of them is there is misogyny at play here. And there is a little racist trope at play here. And I was called out. I like being called out. Please, let's challenge each other correctly. Somebody is like, Latinos and blacks and women all voted for him, overwhelmingly so. And I'm like, yeah, but those things are, what I'm naming is not exclusive to white men.
Yeah.
Those are not, and I think that there's an issue, just like there was a confusion about her biraciality, and there was attacks on that. I think there's confusion about, is racism and misogyny limited to only certain groups of people? And the answer to that is no.
No. In fact, I think that there's it doesn't get checked.
Gay men can be homophobic. Gay men can be wildly homophobic. Yes.
Well, you brought it up, I think, when we were talking about J.D. Vance saying, the normal gays.
Well, he was right. And what he meant to say was the straight-acting ones that can pass. It's a very lovely thing that we talk about in our own community like that with each other. And he used it. But there is a huge consortium of gay white men that voted for him. There's a famous bunch of gay porn stars that are very Amen. God bless America. You can vote and be vocal about who you voted for and why, and that's what's great about this country. But there is social backlash, and they're like, okay, so Project 2025 wants to
Yeah.
put you in jail for your living. Okay, and it seems like that was kind of the phenomenon with all the voters that he pulled in to
Yeah.
his side. It was people that are convinced that who they used to vote for are no good for them, and then this other party is going to protect those social interests of theirs, and they're not. Even if he doesn't want to fully institute Project 2025, the fact that he would be associated with someone in the CPAC group, the Heritage Foundation,
Yeah.
you know, it is wild to me that you would be like, well, yeah, okay, you can say it's abhorrent. But somebody committed $22 million to putting that. Apparently, they do this every 2 or 4 years.
Yeah.
They put out into there was Project 2020, there was Project 2016. Did it gain notoriety now? It's usually the same thing over and over and over again with some tweaks from different contributors. It was generally the same tenets.
So then why? But I think it was the Democrats realized that, hey, this is a punching bag for us. Let's hit it.
I think it was kind of used as a red herring by the Republicans to have them chase down that rabbit hole of.
I
Because
agree.
they have the fear down that they can use, but Democrats don't use that.
I also don't
correctly.
think the Democrats use any of their messaging correctly, because even like they should have been hitting him in targeted ads.
There was
Hey.
no ads on television.
Hey, well, we're also in New York and New Jersey, so
So I said that. I was watching the World Series.
yeah,
And I said that about his Kamala Harris is for they, them, Donald Trump is for you ads, which
Yeah.
were brilliant. I don't want to praise anyone for hate, but they were effective.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there watching every game of the World Series being like, did they waste their great ad. Did they waste their money, New York and Los Angeles, in a sporting event?
yeah,
They didn't, because I guess most of enough people watched it. And they did, and I get it. She's talking in a clip that's out of context, and she's referring to the law passed under his administration for the surgeries for prisoners
yeah,
that fall under the requirement for that, right? She's just confirming what already existed. Again, the Democrats don't understand editing
yeah.
that can be used against you. They don't understand. They should never have done the interview, not because it's like not the right thing to do. They shouldn't have done the interview because that could have been taken out of context with clips. Because Americans don't go look up something. They don't go say, where did she say this? I need to see this.
Or hit him back with it. Like that's the other thing is like I would have been harping on the fact that this guy tried to overturn an election, harping on the Georgia situation that he's been indicted in Georgia. And
I mean, I think they did, but this is the part of the problem. You give speeches that are pretty.
yeah,
Even his, and when I say pretty, I don't mean his sound good. They make you excited. They're just meant to get you excited,
Yeah.
right? And worked up. Then you go to the debate, and he only does one debate because that's on purpose. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to give too much. The problem is the way the debates, even if you had 4 of them, are formatted. 2 minutes
yeah,
on a comprehensive, deep question that requires nuance and a lot of statistical, details presented. 120 seconds is not enough time. Give them 5 minutes. I think give them 5 minutes. A question. Don't let them don't interrupt.
I don't
let
think
them
there's I 5 minutes would be fine. I think the problem is not. I think debate format. I don't think anybody. By the time you get to the presidential debate, how late it is and everything, nobody cares. I think the debates matter more in the primaries.
Nobody watches that though.
But they do because they'll catch the clips of it. That's
Oh,
how
that's a
Trump
good
got. That's how Trump really got started.
Yeah.
Was in the debates by making them entertaining. That's what he was. He was a wrestling, he was like a dude who came from WWE or stand up or roast battles and went in there and just was dominating and was like, you're corrupt. I know this is corrupt. He's attacking people, lying Ted Cruz.
It's funny you say that. I think a big part of his strategy in both cycles, and will be for Republicans probably going forward, is he took what worked on. He worked in reality television.
Yeah.
He took what he saw on his show with people fighting and saying crazy ass shit, and then he took that from other shows and he kind of reformulated it into a political narrative and point of view and style that, again, reality television exploded because that speaks to people, I guess. This plain speaking, which is not really plain speaking, it's just not good speaking.
No, it's like trash talk almost.
Trash talk.
That's what he was doing. He was trash talking everybody, and I I think the first time he ran, he had a very specific message that I think crossed certain lines. I think Hillary was just very unliked at the time. She had a lot of the connections with Bill Clinton, NAFTA. Like, they kept on banging her over on NAFTA. She's like, I wasn't even in Congress at the time. What are you talking about? Like, yes, that was my husband. But she couldn't separate herself enough from it. Same thing with Kamala. Kamala couldn't separate herself from Biden enough.
I don't think she wanted to. I think she was trying to respect him.
And I agree. But
I think the right answer would have been like something like, Joe Biden was a great American asset to the way we lived for 5 decades. However, there are some mistakes that were made, and we could be cleaning them up, and here's how we're going to do it. And I just don't know why Americans have literally said on both sides, we want someone refreshing that can admit things like that and then can change it and fix it.
Yeah.
Because it's not her as the president. We all know that. And I think that
well, I think she should have done that better. To say, listen, I really don't have that much authority.
Correct.
Is that I'm lockstep with Biden right now. That doesn't mean in the future I can't try to use my leverage as president to do a few things differently. I think that was the mistake that she made. I think she also could have defended more of Biden's stuff. Again, like we were saying before with the student loan stuff. Hey, you know how you guys love the Affordable Care Act? Guess who doesn't want? Like, that was I have concepts of a plan. Like, that could have been like, that was such a major moment. The fact that got glossed over is that everybody was making fun of him for concepts of a plan. Even his own people were making fun of him for it.
But I will say this. That's not unheard of to be said by a presidential candidate on the debate stage.
Yeah.
We've kind of heard George W. Bush, when asked about a plan, pretty much said, it's not worked out yet.
I just think, like, you could have still kept on banging them over on it.
Yes.
And I think there was other things they could have, and also this is the thing I think she did not do well, was she was not good at defending her positions when people would ask her questions on things. How is this going to help me? This is, again, why the minimum wage thing I think is such a strong thing to sit there and lean on. It's not the only thing. Hey, are we going to expand Medicare? You were for Medicare for all. And honestly, Medicare for all is a very popular fucking policy.
Yeah.
It's an expansion of the Affordable Care Act. If you like the Affordable Care Act and like the things that it's done for you, guess what? You don't like having be denied for pre-existing conditions? Well, what if we make it cheaper? What if we make it so you're not paying an insurance company, but you're paying the government? And that's already, you're paying the government anyway. So.
You know, and on the campaign trail, he promised that if you are a family member of someone who needs in-home care around the clock, you will be paid by the government for that. He's never going to. Republicans don't do that.
Well, and this is why I thought Pete Buttigieg was such a good, because he made these arguments so much better than Kamala did. And I understand, like, maybe they got to find somebody else who could articulate stuff, or I think Pete Buttigieg probably could pull it off. I understand there might be debates as to whether you think America's ready for X or Y. I think what he was doing very well was he was able to tear apart each of those positions. Yeah. He should have been the surrogate that goes on Joe Rogan's podcast.
That's why he was going on Fox News so often.
Yeah. And he crushed it and all those things. Like, that's why I think he's going to run for something in 2 years, maybe Senate or something, or governor. I don't know when Whitmer's run is done, but I think he's now currently living in Michigan. I think that might be the thing where he takes that step forward of running for something on a state level, because he was so good as a communicator, especially on being able to flip it. Like, oh, you're asking me this question? I was not prepared for this. Flipping that script in 2 seconds and doing it very well. Again, like, the only other person, like, Obama did that. I'm curious, like, the big thing everybody made a big deal. I actually kind of do want to see more Tim Walz, because I think he was actually a very interesting and entertaining VP candidate. I don't think he did well in the VP debate.
No, I think that it was a draw. I don't know why everyone was praising Vance. Vance is a snaky, slick, manipulative salesman. Well, I'm not surprised he talked better at the debate. I liked that Tim Walz. You want to talk about a populist?
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like everybody's grandpa or uncle or friendly older neighbor next door. I think that guy would have been great, but they got him on the tampons. They wouldn't shut the fuck up about his tampons in the schools, which I'm like, what's the problem?
Which is so dumb.
My high school had tampons in bathrooms.
Oh my God, we put a tampon machine in the fucking bathroom. Like, okay, what's your point? That I'm okay with, like, women's health?
Oh, they were trying to do the sexualize, like, oh, the Democrats sexualize the children. When it's funny who sexualizes the children always.
Yeah,
usually.
It's usually, well, Matt Gaetz.
Why are they not upset about children beauty pageants?
Oh, you mean the things that Trump used to run?
Why are they not upset about how Ariana Grande is, like, dressing up to look like a little child? It's weird.
Oh yeah, well that's a whole that weird.
That's a whole other topic. Yeah, that's a whole other topic. I'm just saying.
I don't know how much.
But they don't talk about that.
But I think Tim Walz, I think that was one of the refreshing elements of the election, is we got introduced more to him.
Yeah.
And I think if he runs in 4 years, that's a guy who might be able to pick up that that baton and start going forward.
He understands the price of a cost of a bushel in farming industry.
Yeah.
And that you kind of need that. You kind of need that. And it's funny because the stuff that they talk about in primaries and debates around this area of the country, if you go and you watch a debate, Indiana, Iowa, Wyoming, Montana, any of these like big open farming states, even New Jersey has farms, their biggest question is when they ask the candidates if they know what a price of the cost of a bushel of a certain good is.
Yeah.
For the farmer to charge. And they don't know sometimes.
And he also just comes off like an average working guy.
Yeah.
And I think that sells very well to a lot of people.
He was a good pick. I think the error with him was not his personality or his stances. I think they vetted him enough. I think that he just misspoke about his own timeline. I mean, like, how many years ago? I would have misspoken too. I misspoke about my own timeline in college.
Yeah.
You know, I think he was a good pick. I just think the error was they needed someone that could do something for her on the map electorally.
But at the end of the day, she lost 4 states.
I know.
Like, it wasn't one state. Like,
No.
I understood. If she only lost Pennsylvania, I would have been like, you know what? Maybe you guys are right. Shapiro would have been a better pick. She lost Michigan and she lost Wisconsin. I don't think Shapiro was getting her Michigan. I don't think Shapiro was getting her. And I also think, and this is why, like, whether or not you thought who won that VP debate, I think Trump and Vance muted that debate already because they said the VP pick didn't matter.
Right.
I think they couldn't run on that win. Like, they couldn't walk around being like, look how good they did, because nobody cares about the VP debate. And they were the ones saying it. They were like, nobody cares about your vice presidential candidate.
Yeah.
And I think that hurt them so much
And I also
in
think,
that one regard.
I think that that's such a mistake for Americans to also believe and think that the VP pick doesn't matter. It most absolutely certainly matters.
Oh, yeah.
You could have a medical emergency that incapacitates the president. You could, God forbid, have something violent that happens to the president. I hope never does. This country cannot handle that. Is this wood?
Yes, it is wood.
Okay, knocked on it. You know, you need a strong VP. You need a number 2 that it can step up the second if needed. And I don't know if
I also think
Vance
it matters.
is the right choice.
I also think it matters in the regard of it tells everybody else what you were supporting.
Yes.
Like, so Kamala had issues with unions when she was running, right?
Correct.
And then when Tim Walz came on the ticket, that was a very pro-union guy.
Right.
Far more than Mark Kelly, who I voted against the PRO Act, far more than Shapiro, far more than a lot of these other people. I think that was his, like, I understand
Mark
that Kamala
Kelly would have been a great pick, though, I thought. I really thought. American hero, astronaut. His wife is Gabby Gifford, right?
Yeah,
Gabby Giffords. And that just comes with the whole narrative.
I agree. I think he would have
Love
been a fine pick. I do think maybe it might have alienated union workers and stuff like that. In the end, it didn't really matter.
Nope, didn't.
That's the thing of that the VP pick didn't matter for her. And I think it was far more the stuff of Biden waiting too late to drop out.
Yeah, he waited too late.
Them not having an open primary. Gives you a national stage.
Should have had open. I said it in July. If you look at my Facebook post, even though I voted for her, it says right away in July, fuck Harris, open convention.
Well, open convention is weird because the problem with the
you
convention,
couldn't do a primary though. You had to do it soon.
Well, no, because of when he dropped out. Yeah. But I was saying more along the lines of, or what you could do is just do a 1-day primary. Everybody's voting. We'll fund this and we do it, and
that would have been exciting.
That would have been interesting, and you would have had, hey, we're gonna have 2 debates. We're gonna do them through July. Anybody who and whoever's coming up, we want to see who wants. We want to see what everybody wants to do. I think it would have been expensive. I think it would have been insane. But
I think they also were trying to avoid the issue with the money that he raised has to go to her.
Yeah.
It has to by law. Otherwise, they're back to square one. And I think on top of that, more importantly, I think that was like the second reason. I think most importantly, they were like doing the thing again, telling you who it should be so you can all stop squabbling and just show up on election day. And that didn't work.
And to be fair, there was a moment there where she had a lot of momentum. Like, especially in the beginning, that first, like, 30, 40 days.
She had people listening. When they did the thing, when she was just dismissing every nonsensical thing he said.
Yeah.
And just was like, I don't want. Okay, here's my thing.
Yeah.
That's when she had the ear. And then they got on the defensive when she started being attacked. And I'm like, stop defending the nonsense. You're giving more credibility to it.
Well, and the weird thing that people were defending was, oh, she hasn't done an interview yet. She's been the candidate for 30 days. She hasn't done this yet. Okay, again, 30 days. Like, it was the things that she was getting attacked for. And this is one of the things I got really annoyed with. Not with conservatives. I understand they're going to throw whatever attacks they can. It was progressives. It was not progressives. It was like liberal media that was defending that. That was saying, oh, why hasn't she done an interview yet? It's like, okay, she's been the nominee for like 3 weeks. Like, relax. It'll get there.
She has to.
At that point in time, it was like
she has to employ a staff. She has to change her whole life around.
Yeah.
Okay. She has to start carving out her policy platform proposals. I mean, there's work to be done, I'm sure. And I feel like they were like so mad that like it was a good move, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, Biden would have been, it would have been bad.
Oh, Biden would have been horrible. And that's why, like, there was almost a moment of fresh air, right? Like, when she got up there and it's like, oh my God, this person could speak in full sentences. Like, there was a moment there, I'm like, she's just going to win because she could say coherent thoughts. And, like, maybe, like, she couldn't, like, articulate every message very well, but she was 10 times better than what Biden was doing, which was not, I think my niece who's 3 years old could probably do better than Biden at this point. But you're going up against Trump, who is a cult of persona. People are into him not because of the policy. Fuck that shit. That was the weird thing. You'd sit there and people were like, well, you just, you just don't like him. It's not about the policy for you. I'm like, no. This is the exact opposite. This is like a fucking weird judo bullshit. No, you're not doing that shit to me.
Well, and I think that's like sort of where you see that also where, and it does exist, but it's not exactly skewed in one way. Like they're claiming that the left has been calling the right stupid and cults and just a bunch of names, morons and idiots and inbreds and hicks. And I get it. It's not nice, but they act like it doesn't go both ways. I mean, I don't know about you. I am really tired of being called a child groomer and a pedo because I believe in, you may not agree with something, but you don't legislate it away.
Oh, because people think that the drag queen
and
readings are a big deal.
And the trans surgeries are not happening. Teachers don't even have time for lunch. They got time to do surgery.
I can't afford to bring pencils to school.
Where are they going to learn how to... Don't you think you would notice your kid coming home with surgeries?
Some of the lies just never got checked on that side.
People believe it. Like, there's things where people believe that California has laws that allow you to you could do abortion a month after birth. Where are they getting that from?
That was one, again, like, that was actually, so here's the one thing I will say, and this is what Hillary did well back when she ran. The one issue that they run well on is obviously the abortion issue, right? Women's rights, except they don't articulate why they never codified it into law, which is actually one of the dumbest things that anybody argues about. Everybody sits there and bitches about, well, why didn't Obama, when he had a supermajority?
It makes it harder for SCOTUS to strip, but it's still strippable. It just makes it a little harder.
Not really. It. Oh, it's a 10th Amendment issue that should go back to the states.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They would vote on that. Like, they already... If you're overturning a 50-year constitutional law, a 50-year case law, you're already going against stare decisis, you're going to go ahead and be totally fine with overturning a statute,
That's true.
And you're going to do it based on states' rights, and you're going to say this is a states' right issue. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows you to go ahead
until they go back when they do that and they start doing which they want to do again. Clearly, when they go, yeah, we said it's a states' right issue, but the states shouldn't even have the right to vote on the issue. That's what they're going to claim next. That's their next move, probably.
I don't know what the plan is with it because it's hard to kind of
because if they leave it at the states level in all 50 states, could you imagine legalize things that they didn't like? Then they would turn around and be like, well, if forever, then it's done. Until they overturn it in their own state.
I think right now with the way that it's going is that I don't think it'll ever be federally banned. I know that's like that was part of Project 2025 too, and there's things like that. I kind of think what a lot of what Trump surrounds himself with is not always the people who ends up winning out in his.
Some of these people may not make it to a Senate hearing at all. They may just switch it out immediately.
How long was Steve Bannon there? 6 months? Like, that guy was a white supremacist?
How many press secretaries? Yeah, but Stephen Miller stayed. Didn't Stephen Miller stay the whole 4?
I think he's coming back, too.
He's so weird and creepy looking. Oh, my God.
But, like, I think that's the part that people, like you were saying before, the inefficiency of Trump the first time. I think people were worried that he's going to be more efficient because he's surrounded himself with more efficient people.
More yes men.
I don't know if that's going to work out the way we think it did. Like, I know we've all been worried about that. And, like, listen, I had some hopium the last time, and it didn't work out.
Yeah. I did, too. I said, listen, you don't want an unsuccessful president.
Yeah.
No, I don't want that. If he can do a good job, please do a good job. Then do it, right? Okay? I think we've all had enough shit, right? We want some I don't know if normalcy is the word. I think a level set of bullshit. Like the pandemic, the wars, which... I don't know if we need another event every 3 years, every 2 years. And it's like, I feel like...
Something else is going to be coming.
Something else is coming. If I was our enemies, I'd be watching because this disorganized cabinetry of inexperience is... Someone pull this clown car. OVER, please.
Well, also, the clown car helps a little bit. Assuming... So this is
It does kind of help, oddly enough, yes,
because
I agree.
here's the thing: Trump could have put somebody up, like instead of Matt Gaetz, instead of Tulsi Gabbard, and like an RFK. Now, maybe he's hoping not all three of those get through. Maybe he knows Matt Gaetz isn't going to get through. Maybe Tulsi does.
Maybe sacrificial lambs to then get the next crazier person in.
Exactly. I do think that's a possibility. Oh, I made you guys this promise. It was the Senate that turned you down, and now you can't do it. And now I got to, and maybe I got to give you some honorary position or make you an ambassador to Ireland or something. But I think there's a part of him that's like, oh, I promised them kind of this stuff, so I'll go ahead and put them up. And they're not going to get through. Thune's going to tell me to pull it back or whatever.
The problem is with RFK is there's this whole like weird thing.
You did a good voice right there.
I didn't mean to. I didn't really mean to. But you know what? I don't know how that man gets anybody's ear. I don't want to say anything mean, but like, geez, that voice is like groggly and scroggly. I can't. It's hard to listen to him.
Because he had Joe Rogan's ear, and then he got into the ear of a bunch of Gen Zers.
I mean, he's not a doctor. I don't know why he should be in charge of the CDC, the FDA, any of it.
He's a better candidate to be the head of, to be the attorney general, because he's an actual attorney, and he actually tried cases. I don't think Matt Gaetz has ever tried a case.
What kind of lawyer was he? I know he was a lawyer.
He was an environmental lawyer.
Oh my god!
And like he actually did some pretty amazing things. And now all of a sudden he's kind of like off his rocker, which like that happens, I guess, when you hit 70-something years old.
I can't even
with a brain worm.
The brain worms had the hiding of the bear bodies, the whale heads,
the bear bodies. This guy, listen, I understand why people were appealed to him for like 2 seconds, but then like you start really going into like what his real policies are, and he's like, oh, this guy's a fucking nut job.
So there's like, okay, here's what happens. I think what happens with these things is that they give you with something that's valid. Like, I agree, too many ingredients in food.
Yeah.
I agree. What do you call it? People need to get out in the sun and exercise more, me included. I don't agree the government is hiding the sunlight from you. I don't believe that putting metals in your body to expel toxins that doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not a doctor, but to me, that doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
Chelation therapy. Stem cells are great. But this party, see, that's the thing. The narrative is so twisted right now with that party, because even though they won, they still don't know what they want. Because this man's out there promoting stem cells, which are amazing. Where the fuck do you think you get stem cells from?
Oh, well, that's why Mike Pence doesn't want them confirmed as that.
I saw that. I saw that Mike Pence was like, this is about abortion, right? And I don't want it. And he's pro-choice. I saw that. Now, that I thought was an interesting take, because that party is so fractured down the middle over it.
Well, that party is a very fractured party. But the thing is, and this is the difference that I saw somebody else say, so it's not an original thought, but the difference between the left and the right now is the right can get like, they can think that they're going to get 80% of what they want and they're fine, or 60% of what they want and they're fine, because they agree on these like 3 or 4 issues.
Yeah.
I think the problem with being on the left is our issues are far more nuanced.
Yeah.
Like, so for instance, like Medicare for all, like, you can come up with multiple different ways of getting to healthcare and universal healthcare for people. You have the Affordable Care Act, which is kind of like the most conservative version of that. Then you have a public option, then you have Medicare for all, and those all have different like pluses and minuses to them.
Right.
Same thing with like feminism, right? You talk about feminism, like there's a reason why people have a weird thing with identifying with feminism, and it's not that feminism is not a great thing. It's that there's different waves of feminism. There's different, like, there's third wave feminism, there's second wave feminism. There's people who it's like, is objectification a good thing or a bad thing? Is it, is sexuality in feminism? Like some feminists are very pro sexuality, some aren't. And I think that's why people, they get very stuck on the whole feminism issue. And the same thing with being on the left. You get very stuck on one issue. You look at, Gaza and Israel. I don't want to go deep into that topic right now, because that's a whole nuclear bomb, because people get so deep into that. But it's like, you have some people like, that was their hard stance, was the Gaza line. And it's like, okay, but now it might make it worse because you just allowed Trump to become president.
That's what I don't understand. If that was your issue, fine. No matter what you think of the issue, like you said. Well, if you were mad at the Democrats for that, you're going to hate what the Republicans are about to do.
Yeah. Trump's basically like, make it a one state. I don't care anymore.
He does not care.
That part, and he's very tight with Netanyahu. He's like, so now all of a sudden the guy who's buddy with the guy who's doing your genocide, if that's what, then that's the thing that you're going to, and that's where you're fighting on. Guess what? Now the guy who's in office right now is allowing that. So, you wanted to sit there and fight about Jill Stein. And by the way, somebody who's not consistent on genocide at all. Oh, I'm totally against the genocide in Gaza. Okay, what about Ukraine? Well, I mean, Russia. I don't want to go so far as to call it a genocide. It's like that person, the Jill Stein stuff. Like, I cannot fathom. And honestly, I think more people just didn't vote than
Yeah.
voted for Jill Stein.
Yeah.
You
She had
could-
an impact more in 16 than now.
yeah, because there was even when you look at the votes for her, it wasn't a lot.
No.
She was like, honestly, if you're running for president, you should know how many people are in the House of Representatives and the Senate. And if you can't say that off the cuff, I understand Donald Trump can't do it, but we're not playing by Donald Trump rules.
We're playing by actual people with relative, is supposed to be relative experience rules. Correct.
Yeah, and like this woman's never won state office, and again, like, oh, I appreciate that you were for a green policy, and eventually that got merged into a real thing with the Green New Deal. Totally happy that that happened. You did something to a degree. But like now, like, okay, you're trying to lean on this thing. Like it was like you're jumping on something that's popular. And this is an interview. This is something I just saw Pete Buttigieg talk about. It is the big thing right now is Russia and all these like outside propaganda, like between TikTok and Twitter and X and all these other like bot farms. What they're starting to do is they're not just focusing on one issue. It's not like they're pro Donald Trump. They're pro. We're going to find you and we're going to send you 2 different ads that like you're now debating with yourself on, and it's just a constant fight, and it's creating a mess of like, oh well, whether or not you agree on like for instance the Jill Stein stuff. Like 1 minute you're watching and you go, you know what, I don't support the genocide in Gaza, and then all of a sudden you watch this thing and you're like, oh well, but she's also that person's a fruitcake too.
Everyone is crazy.
Yeah, and it's a weird battle right now because you have outside forces sending out misinformation and disinformation, and how do you combat that?
You can't. I don't know if you can. How do you with
I mean, it's
reverse misinformation? I mean, it's really hard because people see it's what we were taught when we were kids about the internet. You don't trust a thing on it, and that's not happening anymore.
Well, it's about media literacy,
right? It's not happening anymore where you need to see verified works cited, bibliographies. That's not happening.
No,
in schools at all.
You're right, and I think that's actually, and just going to the media literacy of like Gen Alpha, Gen Z, like you're seeing this trend of more and more people becoming conservative, depending on what area of the internet you're on. Like even not just conservative, right? You also have TikTok and the people who flock on TikTok and they go, well, this is where I stand on things, and there's there's definitely propaganda on TikTok.
Yeah,
there's propaganda in podcasting. There's propaganda on YouTube, on X. I mean, now that Musk runs it, forget it. It's now, and that's why a lot of people are leaving to go to Blue Sky, not just because of the propaganda element of it, but the engagement element of it. Like you can post on Twitter and never be seen now. And now you can be on Blue Sky and you can build a following again.
What's Blue Sky? I haven't heard of this.
This is basically was done by the developers who made Twitter.
Okay.
And they basically remade Twitter what
Blue
it was
Sky, like for a bird.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clever. That's clever.
So it's basically what Twitter was 3 years ago before Musk took over Twitter.
Okay.
And so that was, and it's growing a lot.
I think
a
lot of what you're seeing about with X and people with the Exodus, the Exodus, I don't know if that's the right answer. I don't know, because then you don't have the counter voice, but you're saying that they're suppressing that voice. And
yeah, there's not even a counter voice.
I think a lot of people want to leave X. It's nasty. It's disgusting what you see on there. I mean, there's a lot of, after he won, it was an explosion, and it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not made in a jesty way or a funny, comical way, because not everyone's a comic, and a lot of people are crazy.
Yeah.
This disgusting anti-women violent rhetoric, this disgusting anti-Semitic rhetoric, people popping off already. It's disgusting, and I think that exists even outside of an election cycle.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Hitler normalizing going on X. A lot of Hitler normalizing.
On X, just Trump alone has normalized Hitler a few different ways.
I just see a lot of people like associating the normalizing of Hitler with him and also not with him, and I think it is inspired because of him, but the normalizing of Hitler being like, oh my God, he used to give people with a new baby a break on their mortgage? Great. How do you think he was able to do that? Who cares? You're forgetting one important detail about the great things that Hitler did. And it's becoming really weird where it's like this reality is subjective thing. You've been lied to your entire life. Everybody's lying. Everything's a conspiracy. Everything you told is a lie. Is so socially irresponsible.
Yeah.
Because that's not true. And I don't know if the government should be trusted. I'm not saying that. And the media definitely has trust issues. Yeah. Absolutely. We have not. This concept of we've been lied to about everything, about a lot of stuff, is just not true. Some of it.
No.
Some of it is. Some of it is.
Well, they're also being lied to via all these different propaganda, whether it's the podcasting stuff or whether it's TikTok. Like, it's why do you think a lot of like the whatever amount of Gen Z that voted for Trump, and I'm not sure what the actual number is because polling data was not great. So why would the exit polling be great? Like, oh, because there's no preference for lying on that. I don't know. Like,
maybe at the pressure of having to give a popular answer to even just one person in front of you.
Yeah.
Is gone because now you voted and it's over.
Yeah, and that's possibly true. But then you look at the other end of it and you go, well, but like, why would I tell this person? And maybe you just don't know until you go ahead and vote too. Like, that could also be it as well.
I believe that.
But like, if you were not willing to tell people who you voted for before you were going to go in that booth and you kind of already knew, why would you be any more inclined after you leave the voting booth? Like, that's the only thing I can think of is either you didn't know when you went in there, or, well, now I've already done it. It's off my chest. It's going to happen, whatever it is. But so, like, when people are talking about, like, oh, the Latino vote, he won the Latino men, and, he did really well with Gen Z men.
Right.
And I do think you have to work on your messaging to people.
Yeah.
Especially the Democrats, because they definitely dropped the ball on that quite a few times. A lot of people didn't feel like they were fighting for them. And, like, I saw somebody else say it's the debate between facts and feelings. Like, you can't affect how somebody feels. They feel like they're being crunched on what they're making and shit. I think you're going to have a hard time fighting that debate with them because they know how they feel.
Right.
That's what Trump does, a very visceral thing, right? He's like, he creates an other, he creates an enemy, and then he gets up and he says, okay, like, they're fucking with you. They're the bad guys. They're the deep state. They're this, they're that. And you're fighting against this uphill battle with him. So I think that you have to kind of find a counterbalance to that. You have to find somebody people trust and they can rely on.
Yes.
There used to be people like that. And unfortunately nowadays people trust Rogan. And I trust Rogan less after the last 2 months.
Well, what he did after the election is absolutely abhorrent. So how he went on the day after and he was like, so, with his crazy eyes and his crazy face that he makes, so, it looks like elections work. Voting is real.
Well, there's the thing. So he
fucking asshole.
He had Musk on.
Fucking asshole. Before. What an asshole. Oh, so it doesn't work prior to it because you might lose. You could possibly lose. But now that he won, it's legitimate. Disgusting. Shame on him.
Yeah, no, it was even like the 2 days before that when he had Musk on, before he fully confirmed on like, yes, I am endorsing Trump. Mm-hmm. They were sitting there talking about like the clip that he reposted was about how this could be the last election ever.
The dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Even the Democrats didn't say that. They just said he is literally a threat. They said it the right way. It just didn't get anywhere. He's a threat to democracy. Yeah. We're not there.
And the other thing that
But there's a threat.
The other thing that he's pushing is this weird propaganda idea that they're importing immigrants and putting them in swing states. So that eventually...
well, it didn't work.
And giving them a path to citizenship.
It didn't work.
It's also the dumbest, like, exhaustive
idea. Did it work? Did that happen, America? No, that didn't happen, America.
It's just like, okay, imagine you bring in...
and illegal immigrants can't vote.
Well, yeah, the illegal ones can't vote. The ones that are legal and you're giving them a path to citizenship and wherever you're putting them, yeah, a lot of these states want those immigrants. Or Ohio, with the Haitian immigrants, welcomed them in because it was a workforce.
Yep.
And they needed the help.
Yep.
So it was like, hey, we have work for you. So this is where it becomes like, what are you fucking fighting over? But also, where the fuck do you think this? You think this is gonna work? You think these people 10 years down the line are gonna like guaranteed vote for Democrats because there was maybe a policy that they're probably not even aware of?
Well, it shows that you could think that what a certain group of people are gonna vote like on either side of it, but it looks like Latinos voted for him.
Well, it's the other thing. Like, if you're sitting there saying, "Oh, they're giving a path to citizenship for Latinos," Latinos voted for Trump, or at least like Latino men voted for Trump. And again, exit polls. Maybe there's some people who didn't want to confirm. There was a lot more shaming of men voting for Kamala.
Yeah,
more so now than there was for voting for Hillary.
During the week leading up to it, they were I thought they must have had internal data to show this that women were breaking from their husbands on voting, and I think that they got really worried because you saw Charlie Kirk and Michael Knowles, I believe his name is, or whatever the fuck it is.
I saw the guy from Fox News was the one that was
freaking out,
yeah,
freaking out in a misogynistic way. How dare you vote different than your husband? Shut the fuck up. Like I thought this was a free and fair election you wanted, guys.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing that they like the individualism of your wife is no longer valid because you married her. That's fucking stupid.
But I think that just played to the men watching and not the women. I don't think the women really caught wind of that.
Well, and there's also a part of me that wonders how many people maybe got galvanized by that.
Yeah.
That they went, well, now I have to cancel out my wife's vote to go vote for Trump. And said they were like maybe indifferent or whatever. And
Unfortunately, I think we're also like, and I'm guilty of it too, but I think everyone's gotten into this headspace on both sides of it that this was a popular vote split down like 70-30 and it's 60-40. And it's not. It's 50-48.
it's 49-48. Like it's
Oh,
gonna be
is it
49.
49
Yeah,
now?
it's gotten below a 50%.
Okay,
The official numbers are coming back
This
in.
this talk from people that are posting shit like there's no blue states, only blue cities. 84-16. This isn't a divided country. Shut up. That's some Civil War rhetoric bullshit, and I don't want to hear it. And you would hate it the reverse way around, where your vote didn't feel as equal, but it is equal.
Yeah.
Because of population density. You may not like it, but cities actually seem to care. I guess more. I don't know what the issue is about why more lefty voters live in the city. That's just the way it is.
Well, because you're around more people.
I guess so. I think that's what it is.
It's the social element. You're around. You're around more people. You also like via social engagement, right? You are around other people. You are talking to other people. You see other people suffering. If they're like, oh, you were more likely to know somebody who is black if you're or gay or Asian or whatever if you're living in New York City or Chicago. Whereas if you live in you live in the sticks, there's only like 3,000 people in your town. Like they're probably very homogenous. Right. So it's probably very much of the same.
I would say more isolated is the word. I feel like.
Well, that's true too.
Spread
and then they're
lands.
also very much also getting a lot of the same media too.
That's what I think it is. It's more of like the reach physically. I feel like geographically.
And that's also why I think expanding broadband was a big thing. That was one thing that Joe Manchin was very much for, was bringing more broadband to West Virginia. And I think that's one of those things that opens up the internet.
Yeah.
But again, once you have the access to it, then becomes where are you getting your news from? Teaching media literacy. Here's the problem. It's almost like you can't get too young with teaching media literacy now.
Right.
Because I've seen this with my cousin who's like 8 years old, and he's starting to go into brain rot YouTube.
Yeah.
And you're starting to hear him say things and spout off things that it's like, dude, like your uncle and your cousins are all like this. Like, what are you talking about?
There's a teacher I watch in my feed that sometimes comes up that is hilarious, and he talks about the language that the kids use today. Slang is always a thing, but it's like become an entire culture of a language.
Yeah.
Like a whole language. Like, yeah, okay, we used to have like, what was it, gibberish?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, but we weren't talking like it every day. I mean, these kids really get enamored by what is in front of them. And I think that that's just American culture, enamored with what is in front of you. That is shiny and fun and exciting and new-ish. Not new to that realm.
Yeah.
Ergo, Trump going into politics.
Well, that's the other thing is there's a lot of people who don't remember or were too young to remember. Like, you think, again, like the Gen Zers, like the 25-year-olds who, like, when Trump first ran, they weren't able to vote.
They don't remember that in 2006, that he presented Miss Cynthia Nixon with an Emmy for Sex in the City.
Or they don't
Talk about hating celebrities.
Yeah.
That was like he was a celebrity. He still is a celebrity to me.
Well, that's why I think the whole we don't want celebrities and the whole
I'll take Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart 2028. I'll take Jon Stewart any day.
I honestly wish
I know
he would do it.
they've begged him for years, and he's just like, somebody told me that he's effective in his seat where he is, and I'm like, yes, but a man that could walk into Congress and demand you extend those 9/11 benefits for those volunteers, you didn't even hold office, and you made that happen with an unfriendly Congress to you.
Yeah. No, I
run
agree.
for president, sir.
I 100% agree with you on that one.
And the reason they went with him on it is because he's wildly popular.
He's wildly popular across spectrum.
Yes.
He's very popular with young people. He's very popular with even people who like didn't necessarily grow up with him or grew up with him right at the time where he was leaving, right? Like it might have been teenagers like the Gen Zers that are like 25. Like they still see who he is. Now a lot of them maybe don't have the same level of respect to say like millennials do and some older millennials and Gen Xers, but I do think that there's a lot of those people who still like ID him and they go, "Oh, I grew up watching him when I was like, I would tune into him when I was like 10 or something."
Yeah. And I think that I would love to see it happen. It's never going to happen. I think you're more likely to see Mark Cuban take a run at it. I'd vote for Mark Cuban. Why not?
I mean, I voted for the last three people who weren't Republicans. I voted for. I've never voted for a Republican president, so
Never.
I'd probably vote for him if he ran for a Democrat. But like, I don't think I like Mark Cuban as the ideal for because
I don't
think it's
either.
the same losing strategy.
Yeah.
It's the same losing strategy. They did this before, and it's the Hillary's tilt to the right and Kamala's tilt to the right. You need to get people who are not voting to show up.
Yeah.
And they need to feel like you are fighting for them. And this is the big mistake they keep fucking making. And whether it's being able to articulate the issue of what you did well, which is, listen, we didn't get to discharge all those student loans that we thought we were going to do. The Supreme Court fucked us over. You know who put those people in the Supreme Court? Donald Trump put those people in the Supreme
I think
Court.
they didn't hit that point home either. Is that like...
the fucking Supreme Court?
Yeah, they didn't hit that at all. And I don't understand why they didn't mention that, because Americans know SCOTUS, I feel like. Even any American understands the concept of that. And that they're lifetime appointments. And I think that they didn't hit that this man could be responsible, if elected again, for 5 Supreme Court appointments. That is not what we were supposed to. That is not what the forefathers wanted. I do not think that's the whole point of why they didn't want to do these things.
No, and I think the only way you combat that now is you hope eventually you get a supermajority in the Senate, and then maybe you can go ahead and start packing
His
the
followers do not show up at midterms.
They don't.
They don't do that.
And so this is the one thing, and this is why I think the Democrats, in a kind of post-mortem kind of way, thought they were going to do better.
Yeah.
Is 2022. They
Yeah,
did
I
way
think
better
so.
than they thought they were going to do in
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
They did way better than the polls because of the Dobbs decision. The Dobbs decision came out. Women were pissed. You know, that's why they thought they were going to win Iowa.
I don't know why they thought that. I know that the polls said.
There was a
I
poll
know,
that came out.
I don't agree with what that poll said. I was like, there's no way, that doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't. But again,
Because they're not polling correctly with the right people.
Well, that was a pollster who actually has had a pretty good track record up until that point. But now
The game is different now, though. The guy with the keys. You know the guy with the keys? What's his name?
Yes, I know who you're talking about. By the way, happy to never see that guy again.
Oh, those
That
keys
pompous-
are done.
That
They don't
pompous
matter, those
keys guy that was like, no, you're misrepresenting the keys. I make this decision on the keys well ahead of time. Now you're seeing people change, and guess what? You were wrong. You were so wrong.
To be fair, a lot of people were wrong.
Oh, but the level of like
Wrongness. was
here, I
extreme.
understand. Like if you are like, he's like the keys are never wrong. That's the thing. I'm like,
He was wrong one time before.
yeah, he was. Well, then he goes, well, I got Al Gore won the popular vote, and blah. Like, well, I don't. But Hillary won the popular vote the last time. Is it based on the popular vote or the real shit? I'm confused.
Well, if you bring that, it brings that debate back into question. Do we do that? Is that something that we should be doing as a popular vote? Because all elections, except for ballot measures, usually because it's a 60-40 requirement in a lot of states, all elections otherwise are popular. There's no electoral college for counties.
Oh, I'd be totally fine getting rid of the electoral college, but the reason why it's there is because it's in the Constitution.
Is it though?
Yeah,
It is? Okay.
yeah. That's the only reason why we have the electoral college is because it's in the Constitution.
So
same
my-
thing with the Senate. Same thing with everything else.
So this is the bigger thing, though, that I think people should be more concerned about with the threat to democracy issue. And I think that has something to do with what you were just saying, is that if you look at the Constitution, there's no requirement for separate parties.
No.
There's no mention of it. No taking into account. There's just legislation and precedents in the courts saying you have to have, but that could always be undone by a SCOTUS. When do they start wanting to do unified party theory? That's what,
one party.
yeah, that's when you should really, that's the one, it would,
I mean, they're
American,
starting to do it. They're
American-
starting to become more like the fucking. The Democrats are becoming more like the fucking
I
Republicans
think American
every year.
fascism would be more looking like in the style of one party as opposed to one person. Power transfer within the party. And where you would then be presented with choices that are different, but really all the same thing. And that the person is already selected for you to win. So I think that that's the bigger concern
think
that you
the people
would be more concerned about.
I think the people who like care about that deep state stuff, that's what they think they already have.
Well, that's crazy. I think you just have I think you have
I think you have
influence.
ineffectual.
I think you have ineffectual corruption and influence. I don't think you have a concerted, organized effort to install them in the government, and that's what you're now seeing laid out in front of you. And I'm very confused as to why. First of all, I'm very concerned with these picks. Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to national security.
Yeah.
Absolutely, she is inexperienced. What is her resume on that? Absolutely nothing, right?
So I'm not going to go with the inexperienced angle on it. I'm going to say we know that she has ties to Russia and Assad, and this is something that's been pointed out.
Correct.
And I used to think that was just like a crazy thing people threw out there, right?
Nope.
Like I used to kind of give her, I used to have some deference towards Tulsi Gabbard because like I listened to her talk and I thought she was very smart, and then when the Ukraine stuff happened,
and she started talking about them biolabs.
Yeah, everything post COVID and especially post Ukraine invasion. You start hearing, oh, you definitely are a Russian. Like, you might not be a I'm saying might not be a Russian asset.
Clinton called it. Hillary called it out. She said she's a Russian asset. She's compromised, and I fully believe that.
And I'm starting to believe that. And I started to believe that after the Ukraine thing because
we're helping them pay for bioweapons labs, Miss Girl.
Yeah, she between that. And then her stance on the Israel-Gaza thing where you go, okay, but that's not consistent.
No.
Like, this is what I always have an issue with people with those things. It's like, well, one's not consistent with the other. I'm fine if you're, like, I understand if you're pro-Israel and you're pro-Ukraine. That makes sense.
Right.
Like, because you're like, okay, these are our allies. We said we're going to stand up for them. I understand if you're, like, I also understand if you're like, listen, like, the Gaza thing, like, we talked about before the kids being killed. Like, I understand if you, like, if that's where your stance on it is. If you felt like there was a line that got crossed at a certain point, there's a lot of different ways people can feel about all these issues.
Right.
But there's inconsistencies with, especially like the Russian stuff, the Russian-Ukraine stuff, where you go, especially with Jill Stein and and Tulsi Gabbard, where you go, oh, you're a nut job, and like either you're a nut job or you're in somebody's pocket.
Right.
And that's what's kind of the red flag there.
It's not a nut job when you're repeating what somebody has already said.
Yeah.
So she's definitely in his pocket. Hegseth for DefSec is a mess.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's a mess. Women shouldn't serve in the military. What are you in the 20s? Like, get out of here. And you know what? He's not experienced enough, and it'll be a mess. And enemies watching right now are probably like, it's like they want it, guys.
Well, I think the problem is that Trump sent too many of these crazy ones all at once.
Yeah.
It was Tulsi Gabbard, Matt Gaetz,
He's just
RFK.
He's just picking people that were vocal for him. That's it.
But he's fucked people over before. He fucked over Chris Christie.
I don't know why no one's getting fucked over here. I do think.
Well,
actually,
I think they will eventually.
Elon and Vivek are getting fucked. They're getting dumped.
Yeah.
Into an unofficial government thing that's not going to do anything. But it'll be a waste of our money.
Yeah.
I do think what's going to end up happening is they will get rid of things. They will get rid of departments. They will ruin careers.
Yeah.
And people's lives and employees. And I think that will happen. And I think they will take those funds. And I think they'll take the Ukraine money. And it'll fund the deportations.
Yeah.
And and then whatever's left over, those are going to go to no bid contracts to all their buddies at 4 or 5 times worth their value. And that's where the money's going to go, but no one will see that. And then he'll present it. Look, I did it. I did exactly what I said. I got rid of the inefficiency, and we're not spending money on that. But unfortunately, the money will be spent elsewhere, something stupid and wasteful.
Yeah, it's. I think I'm more concerned. I'm hoping that it's just normal level corruption and inefficiency, and not.
No way, it's normal level corruption. No way, it's normal. It's going to be warp speed 10 corruption. I think it's all right. It's being installed in front of our faces as we speak.
But here's the thing I'm more worried about is
Christy Nome.
It's just like is the DEFCON 0 worst case scenario shit where it's all yes men and nobody's stopping you and nobody's standing in your way. That's the concern.
That's the concern.
And
now it didn't happen last time. The worst that happened was a mismanaged pandemic. Okay, and he had some people that weren't doing the yes man thing, and then now we know Fauci's probably going to prison. He's not going to prison.
A lot of them weren't doing the yes man thing.
I can't wait.
That's why he surrounded himself with the people he did.
I just can't wait for the DOJ mess that's going to be happening, because it's going to be hilarious to watch them. I think you might see people not needing to be thrown in cuffs, and then just walked away. Perp walked. I think you are going to see Fauci in cuffs. I think you will see other people in cuffs, but then they'll release them because there'll be no charges.
Yeah, well, because
what are the charges? What's the crime?
This is the one thing about our system is that you have a lot of you have judges. You have now. This is why all of a sudden you're seeing like Operation Warp Speed of put in all the judges you can, Biden, because you only have so much time left.
That's not happening fast enough. He's nominating, but like.
Well, it's the Senate's getting there now. They're starting to go like, we only have so much time. Yeah. We got to start like
They'll get confirmed. They'll get in. The problem is that he's going to install his own judges when he's in. It's going to be a mess. The DOJ, the federal courts are going to become highly compromised.
Yeah,
highly compromised. You're going to see a mess.
And I don't know what ends up happening there. Because also I don't think Matt Gaetz is the final guy to be the AG. I don't think it works. I think there's too many people that hate Matt Gaetz. I think there's too many people who don't like Tulsi Gabbard, who are a little too afraid of her contacts with Russia.
She has no business as a national security.
The DNI.
Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah.
Correct. Why? What about you representing the people of Hawaii makes you qualified for that position? Not that Hawaii is a terrible state, but what did you do in office in intelligence that made that qualified for you to be in that role?
I guess she'd argue that her background in the military, but
that's not enough.
But I'm very curious. But I think just her contacts to certain to certain countries, especially Russia.
I don't know why she wasn't investigated when she's like, I've been talking to Assad. Why are you talking to Assad? Which is a lie, probably.
I don't know. With her, I think it's just I find her very concerning, but I don't find But now here's the thing: it's you have a lot of people who respect her because she was another person that Joe Rogan very much propped up.
Yeah.
And did it when Rogan. I think Rogan's losing a lot of his clout. I think he was already losing a lot of his clout. I remember when it came off like he was endorsing RFK, and he backtracked it because all the people who were like Trumper fans start flipping out. And he's like, I wasn't a real endorsement. That wasn't a real endorsement. You got to do that 3 times.
Yeah.
And I think the problem's going to be, I think eventually they're going to go ahead. Like he's losing his clout. Like there's a reason why he finally had Trump on. There's a reason why he was inviting presidential candidates on. He saw everybody else doing it and he goes, I have to get on this train too. And I honestly do think that there's a point where he might run for president.
So do you think she should have gone on it? Would it have made a difference?
I don't think it would have made
She wouldn't. I don't think she would never have gone on. It's too prepackaged for the party. It's not prepackaged enough for the party.
She's very good when she has written lines that she can hit. And she's very good with that. She's good at repeating lines of dialogue. She's not good at defending these things. Because the other thing is, she hasn't had the opportunity to live with these policies for a year and a half. I also think that's what makes it very hard, is that you have this... I think that's why having the truncated campaign made it so hard. Yeah. Was that you did not have this opportunity to live with your policy, to sit there and be like, and then also know what you changed.
Right. I think a lot of it was I'm going to keep her going on The View. Yeah. And saying, I wouldn't have changed it. Nothing comes to mind about what I would have changed. See, that's not on the cuff enough. Yeah. Well enough for you to be, there's something, and then she tried to really quickly save it by saying, I would have appointed a Republican. Maybe you should have just said that.
I don't even know if I would have said that, because I don't think that sold. I don't think anybody liked that. I don't think that changed anything.
No.
Also, walking around with Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney all the time, I don't think that helped out.
I think the Dick Cheney thing was kind of a conundrum for them. I don't think they knew what to do with it, because once that endorsement came, now that'd be interesting if he endorsed her on purpose, right? Yeah. Because he's a war hawk, and he knew that the complaint about a lot of people not voting Democrat was they're war hawks, which I don't know where that's coming from, but I don't think they knew what to do with that. I think they were trying to grab across the aisle voters that they thought they were going to get. And I thought her saying it's an honor to have his endorsement was the wrong wording. I think she should have said, I will take an endorsement. Let's just not forget who this endorsement is coming from. That we are just aware that he was Bush's VP and that he was very into wars.
And he was very unliked.
Right.
He was very unliked.
And I think she said that. But again, she's doing that thing where she wants to pay someone their due.
Yeah.
And instead of just calling it out. And that's what Americans didn't like, I think. A lot of that was they didn't like, he's calling it out. Yeah. But it may be wrong, but he's calling Stalin out. She's being like, well, I think that nobody wants to deal with that. The language was too flowery. The language was too long. Too many words. Yeah. You lose them at words. You got to get them fast. They're eating the dogs.
Well, I think that made him look like a lunatic.
I think it worked, though, in his favor. Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the thing that worked.
Because it got them talking about anything from that debate except that.
I don't know. I think for him, the thing that worked was just people, they wanted something different. Because the wages have not gone up.
It's an anti-incumbency year across the globe. If you were in office and you had an election in a Democratic election this year, you were the fuck out.
Yeah. I think my final thought on this has been, I think you're right. The one thing you're very right on is I think Jon Stewart running is the one thing I would probably fix a lot of that.
I can't tell you enough, Jon Stewart, if you're watching this. I know you are. I know you are, John. Run, bitch. I'll vote for you. This gay Jew will vote. Yeah, I don't know if that'll help you, but
the person who probably was already voting this direction.
I do think he would win. I really, truly do. And if it ever happened, you owe me a steak dinner.
Okay. If that ends up happening, I actually have no problem with that. If that ends up getting us getting President Jon Stewart, I would be totally fine with that.
You know, and it's not just like what he says or what he thinks or what I think his policies would be. I think it's also like he would know who to surround himself in the cabinet with. And I think that that's what people forget, and they never talk about it in debates or elections. It's like, it's not even the president. It's you're voting for the potential cabinet.
You're also voting for the person. Like that's what ended up happening here. Is people thought they felt like Kamala was just like a prop.
Yeah.
And that was a repeat of Biden. Or it was an input from like, hey, this is the we stuck these people in office, and this is the deep. You don't have to call it deep state, but this is what the corporatists want. This is what the corporations want. And this is where, like, again, attacking the corporations would have been a great thing. Hey, they had record corporate profits during our time. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I think we have to raise wages. I think the only reason why we didn't get that was because you had people like Sinema and Manchin, and we need you. We need you, the voter, to go out and get us better people. We need better people in Congress, and that's how we're going to be able to fight for you. And I hate that every time there's a Democrat that's a leader, they drop the fucking ball on that.
I think that they're trying to appease so many small portions of the electorate.
Yeah.
And I think that they're trying to reach middle of the road voters, and that's not working.
No. Well, it hasn't worked. It has never worked. The only thing that works is you had Obama, who appealed to not the middle of the road voter.
Yeah.
He appealed to people who were populist, who were like, oh, I want Medicare for all. I want the Affordable Care Act, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act.
Yeah.
All these things that were very important things for, people's wages, minimum wage. They raised minimum wage under Obama. Like, these are things that they did, and it appealed to the general populace. And, oh, by the way, like, he got reelected.
Yep.
And he got reelected during a time that was very hard to get reelected
and easily reelected. Easily. It wasn't split like this.
No, well, it was first off, and he didn't get the same amount of electoral votes this time, but he got reelected.
Yeah.
And again, it was not an easy time for him to get reelected. No. They were trying to make him a one-term president.
Yes.
Which was actually, I think, what Mitch McConnell said.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they have to change their messaging. They have to come off more like the working class party, and they are not doing it. And
I think there's an arrogance issue. I think they have an arrogance issue. To knock on Rogan, I thought was arrogant. I mean, I know why she didn't, but she would never have done 3 hours.
No.
And they would have walked in with pre-prepared questions, and he would have said goodbye. He would have turned that down. They have to find somebody that can. The word is relate.
Yeah.
Even if it's a. Unfortunately, people relate to this billionaire. They relate to the other billionaire he's running around with. They relate to the richest men in the world for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't know if they relate to Elon Musk or they just find him like. I guess some people do relate to him.
The people that love him think he's absolutely terrific.
Because he's surrounded himself with good idea things. Like, he jumped on good ideas. He jumped on Starlink.
But then they're mad at Bill Gates. Then they're mad at Bill Gates. Not that Bill Gates is wonderful. I'm just saying. The things that they like about Elon are the same things they hate about Gates.
I agree. I think the thing that I think the thing is that we have not associated anything big with Gates in a long time.
Yes.
If Gates was still
as relevant socially. Right?
Yeah, like if he was the guy investing in electric cars, if he was the guy investing in space travel, if he was the guy investing in satellites.
Could we just talk about the irony? And again, nothing in this election makes sense at all. Everything is topsy-turvy under, like, neo-Nazis and Jewish people voting together is a wild concept to me, over a conflicting idea.
Yeah.
Okay? What's interesting to where was I just going with this? Oh my lord, I'm sorry. It's been a weekend. The EV thing. It's ironic to me that they're like, we're gonna get rid of this EV promoting thing, right?
Yes, you mean the thing that's propped up Elon Musk's company?
I'm so confused. They all hate EV, and that's literally what Tesla is.
Yeah. And it makes his cars sell easier because, like, oh, I get like a $7,000 tax credit.
Which makes me think they're not going to repeal any of that.
Oh no, they're not.
No,
they just like to go up there and say we're gonna do X, we're gonna do Y.
The problem though is when they when they don't get the reaction they want, that's when they turn to the social issues. That is historically what has happened with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So him saying like, I don't want to touch ACA, great. I'm glad you said that.
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it. I don't want to touch gay marriage. It's great that you said that. I don't buy the party not wanting to touch that. I don't want to touch mifepristone or the pill. I don't believe you at all.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's where that party has gone historically. When they don't get their way on those other policies and they see it's not working for them socially and politically, even in a non-reelection cycle, we could talk about that third term that he's been joking about.
Yeah.
I think that, like what you said, though, the Democrats need to change their messaging. They need to change the whole game. They need to adjust to the current game.
Yeah.
Because the current game is not going anywhere. I think that the cult of personality ends with him.
Yeah.
Not calling anyone a cult, just saying that's a term. I think that ends with him. I think it will become what the party. Listen, in 2012 and 2008, they said the same thing about the Republicans on TV when Obama won.
Yeah.
Both times. What is this? The Republican Party is fucked. It is finished. They will never win another general election again. And I remember sitting there saying at the time, like, that's a wild statement to say because American politics and our minds change all the time.
Yeah.
Fickle. Look how we treat our celebrities and celebrity culture. In 1 minute, out the next the second. Okay? They come back, they go away, they come back again. And sometimes they never do that. It's just how we are. And I think that that'll eventually happen. I think that does this dance with fascism end? I don't know.
Well, that part's very concerning. I do think that I think a lot of the senators that this is the one thing about Thune being the guy who got put up.
Well, he doesn't like that Thune got picked. That's very interesting to me.
I think that was a good thing.
It's a message.
Yeah,
it's a subtle message.
We're not bending over to you. This is a co-partnership. Like it's same when what's his name? The turtle dude that Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
When he was the leader of the Senate, there was things that they were just like, we're not going to do. There's things that we are going to do.
Yeah.
You're not going to appoint Judge Judy to be the Supreme Court justice. I know it didn't happen, but it was like one of those things people thought could happen. Also, his sister was also somebody that people thought maybe he was going to do as an appointment as for Supreme Court justice as well. This is actually the thing. Like everybody's worried about him replacing Alito and Justice Thomas. They were the most conservative of the two justices anyway.
The problem is that the concern is the age he would replace with. And then you have a MAGA SCOTUS until 2075. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, there's the one option is, and I don't want this going super big because then all of a sudden maybe they start to try to do something to block it or they do their own version of this. But you pack the court. What you do is you expand it and you pack it with another 6 members and you say, all right, we went from 9 to 15. Congrats. Now we've added 6 more liberal justices. What do you want to do now? And then you can go ahead and undo all these bad, long precedent overturning bullshit. And to be fair, just the threat at that at one point in time was what happened under FDR. For a while, there was a conservative leaning Supreme Court, and FDR came in and they said, well, you know what? You're going to keep fucking up our policies. We're just going to go ahead and expand it. And they got freaked out and they said, hang on, buddy. We'll go ahead and do what you want to do. And they overturned.
What is the requirement to expand? No constitutional amendment?
They said pass law.
Oh, they'll never do it. There's not enough time.
Right now, they won't do it. But I'm saying
now, could they sue to SCOTUS if they did it right? Could they sue to SCOTUS to argue about SCOTUS?
They could, but there's no
who argues it then.
But here's the thing: there's nothing that stops them from expanding it.
Oh,
there's no precedent for them to stop them from expanding it. They could try to argue it, but they would be like,
so what's stopping Biden?
The Senate. Because 1, you have to beat the filibuster.
Yeah.
And 2, you also have to beat your 2 fucking turncoat Democratic Party members in Sinema and Manchin. So that's always been the issue so far. That's why they never did it. That was the debate back when Biden won in 2020. In 2020, that was the thing that got floated after what's it called when they nominated Amy Coney Barrett and they were like, how do we defend basically at that time Roe v. Wade.
I think now that you mention her, I was talking about this with someone the other day. I think she might be a wild card in some of the stuff that gets filed in front of them. She's not great, right? No. But out of the rest of the conservative judges, she seems to be, from her track record, a little bit more moderate. I think she might be a wild card that the Trump administration is not going to be expecting in some of the rulings.
I think all 3 of his nominees are not. That's why I said his nominees were not as conservative as Alito and Thomas.
Correct. Yeah.
Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett each have their issues that they seem to be appealed to. Right. Gorsuch seems to be very pro Native American rights.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh, for some reason, has a big affinity for like sports gambling, like a lot of the stuff relating to like college sports, and wanting to overturn the limitations, the NCAA limitations. So he has his things that he has kind of like heartfelt issues on. So you can also hope that maybe that starts to sway them back towards, a more mid zone of things. Like that's why when they overturned Roe v. Wade under Dobbs, they did say that, listen, we understand, like, we don't really believe in substantive due process, but we also understand people rely on these cases, and that we're not overturning all substantive due process cases,
Right.
which is what Obergefell was,
Yeah.
which is what Lawrence v. Texas was, which is what the contraception cases back in Connecticut,
Right.
the contraceptive case, and then also the even going back to Brown versus Board of Education. We're not overturning all these cases, but what we are saying is that this one case has a very specific, like they were saying Roe, because there's another life involved.
Right.
This has this wasn't rightly decided. We're saying this should have been decided this way. There's another life, which is what they're basing it on. And that's the debate there, is that, and I don't agree with it, but that's what that's why they're saying they're okay with overturning this and not that. Now, Justice Thomas in his dissent, or not his dissent, his concurrence, turned around and said, well, actually, I would have went ahead and overturned all of the substantive
Which is easy because
cases.
he would then have his marriage nullified.
Yeah, why would you want to be? Maybe he just doesn't like being married to his wife.
I mean, she sounds like a horror show.
Yeah.
He does too. Maybe they love each other. Maybe because they're both horrible, awful people that connect well. Who the fuck knows? They're both terrible.
Griswold versus Connecticut was the contraceptive
Yes.
case. That was the one. It was running through my
I don't
head
know.
at some point.
I think he's just inviting the Republican Party to file the cases, and that you have to remember they send messages like that.
Oh yeah.
I think that was just some bullshit he spouted because he wants them to file the cases. It's an invitation that he's saying, here's how I am inclined to rule. But the problem is that they're going against the book on everything. They're hearing cases with no standing. And I am convinced when they heard that case about, is it okay for business to discriminate against gays? Convinced that person doesn't even actually exist. Because that website was made, I went to the person's website.
I remember that, yeah.
Nothing. There's nothing there. They don't have any examples of their work. Nothing. She wasn't even commissioned for a work for a gay artist. Nothing. For a gay site. Nothing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big debate right now is, okay, like, even if Trump gets to put somebody up, you still have to put up somebody who's qualified, has to pass Senate muster.
Correct.
Yeah, and you have people like, I know Susan Collins has not always been a very, I would say, protective senator of, like, again, she voted for all of his Supreme Court justices, which I probably wouldn't have done if I was her. But then again, I'm also not a Republican, and I'm also not in, but Susan Collins, Murkowski, Thune, there's a lot of people who, like, they did push back against some of Trump's stuff because they also have to be reelected.
They also have to be reelected. And I also think things like Elon Musk saying, I will primary you if you don't go with his choices.
It didn't work the first time.
Yeah, it didn't work the first time.
It didn't work any
And
of
also,
the times
you know
it's
what?
happened.
Fine, primary them.
Yeah.
Primary them. I mean, like, what are you... this idea, this obsession with being unelected, it's just, it has to end.
But the number one thing the Democrats have to do is fix their messaging, and also they got to win some states. They got to win some Senate seats. It's not going to be easy.
No. They have to get a machine going. They don't know how to use the internet properly, which I thought was funny because when Trump's campaign was using the internet, they were fumbling it. Like, the thing about the snacks with Vance, the things with the donuts. But what they were smart about is they must have changed their team around because they must have had consultants come in and be like, you need to start taking stories from your contender, right? That's against you. And that McDonald's thing was, we thought it looked silly. Yeah, it looked silly the way in which he did it, but it was kind of brilliant to take that story. Even if he did it wrong, he took the story from her and made it his own. Very smart.
I don't know if that did anything. I honestly don't know how much the McDonald's thing sold anyway. I think this was a lost battle back again. I think and the battle was lost the second that Biden continued to be in the race.
Yeah.
And I think everything that Kamala did was trying to ice skate uphill. Like, it was, you were trying to go ahead and you're overcoming the lack of name recognition. Listen, there was excitement around her. Like that, and I was part of that excitement.
It was exciting
because she could speak in full sentences. I'm sold. Exciting. Like, wow, this is amazing. You can communicate. Like, this is weird. You're not just mentioning stuff about some weird serial killer from a TV show or a movie. Yeah, like, that's why it was like, I understand why people got excited about it.
By the way, can we just say that I am so convinced that when he says immigrants are coming from insane asylums, I think he means that's what he thinks seeking asylum is. You leave one and go to another.
I would not be shocked with him on that.
I really think that's what he thinks it means.
It's wild.
I was like, where is he getting it from that they're coming from insane asylums? Because they're not. They're just coming from wherever. Who knows if that's true or not. But, like, first of all, I thought we didn't have insane asylums. He wanted to bring them back.
Honestly, this is the thing with him. He's a moron. He's an idiot, and like, I don't think you're an idiot if you voted for him.
No,
but no. I do think, well, because I honestly don't want to alienate anybody who voted for him, but I honestly, like, but he has this way of speaking to what people feel.
Yes,
and I think that's what he did really well, and that's why he won. Yeah. Is that he was able to sit there and he made an enemy out of immigrants, which is what they constantly like to do, but this time he was effective with it. And he kind of got up there and said, I feel that you're not, the groceries cost more and you're not making as much. Now, his policies aren't going to help you there. Because his policies are going to end up hurting. He went on I'm not taxing tips. I'm not taxing overtime.
They're going to still tax that shit.
Oh, yeah. That's never going to happen. I told somebody that. They're like, aren't you going to be happy when you're working all this overtime? They're not going to tax it. I'm like,
no, it's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen.
And then even now, his judges just went ahead and knocked down a thing on overtime with the NLRB. Where they it was one of the I think it was one of the Texas District Court judges, one of the federal ones, knocked down a new labor, I guess, code where they were expanding overtime, and they rejected it. And now all of a sudden you're gonna have to fight that. This is what the Chevron issue is. Yeah. Where was this part of implied with the statute versus whether it was outright said in the statute? This is going to be this is why a lot of the stuff with the Supreme Court is not great. Yeah. And it's even some of the things that they've decided, like overturning Chevron and more than just the Dobbs decision, but like it's going to hurt the individual, and people keep on like forgetting that these things are adversely hurting them. Yeah. And
Americans have short memories, and that's what we end up doing is we make short-term decisions with long-term results.
And like I said before, if you have the SAVE Act, if you went ahead and applied for that, currently you're in forbearance and it's no interest. That's going to stop once Trump becomes president. Yep. So you got 3 months of interest-free loans, and then congrats, Mohila or whoever else is fucking doing your student loans is going to be hitting you up, and they fuck up all the time. That's been one of the biggest problems with those student loan processors. They keep fucking up, and then when you have a Democrat in there, they go ahead and fix some of it a little bit, and then they all leave because they're like, we can't afford to actually do this correctly. Yeah. And then so if you do the SAVE Act, the Affordable Care Act, like, oh, I'm not going to do anything with it. All right, but what happens when that bill comes across his desk? You don't know. And he ran on, I'm going to undo it. They tried undoing it under his first presidency. If it wasn't for John McCain walking up there and saying fuck you, then we wouldn't have the Affordable Care Act, and then we'd be back under.
I think also he stopped with that in 2017 because besides just McCain doing that publicly, which was brilliant, it was also like a giant FU. It was politically giant unpopular for everyone to have you do that.
But he doesn't care about re-election anymore.
I know.
He does care about popularity, though.
He does care about his legacy. He is obsessed with what people think of him.
Yeah.
I think that might be his own internal guardrail at this point. Hopefully, maybe. Who knows at this point? I mean, I do think that you're going to see usually the second-term president for their party doesn't do fucking shit because they don't want to fuck up the party's chances.
But this is we're in this weird zone of things.
He's not beholden to that because he's not the party, even though he's the party. I think that the party weakens when he leaves.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's talk.
He's the only one who could do what he can do.
Now, the last thing I want to ask you about is this third-term nonsense he made a joke about the other day. First of all, I just want to say I'm all for jokes.
Yeah.
Jokes are great. Jokes to give a moment of levity and decrease some of the weight in the room when appropriately implemented and used. Joking about a third term is wildly inappropriate. It is not a joke.
Especially when your ass is on the fucking nuclear codes. Like, that's the problem.
That's not funny.
It's one thing when you have the ability to actually cause, like, mayhem and shit.
Oh, I can't run for a third term unless you do something about it. That's not fucking funny, dude.
Yeah.
Half the country thinks you would do something like that. There's a lot of us with generational trauma that don't want you joking like that.
Yeah.
Okay? There is no reason to be making any kind of jokes like that when everyone's already on edge. You have been that kind of threat, and now you're making jokes.
Yeah.
Jokes ain't, you ain't a comic, buddy. Go be president. You want to be president so fucking badly. Go be fucking president. Now stop with this nonsense about a third term. It's not gonna happen.
I don't know. It's not going to happen. One, because I don't think the Republicans want to deal with him again.
You have to change the Constitution. You are not getting a ratification on that shit.
No, that's never going to happen. I mean, they couldn't ratify the fucking ERA, and that was popular.
Right.
So I can't imagine that they would ever get another amendment passed in the future of anything.
It would be too hard. It's the country. You wouldn't get anybody on one side of one issue enough on the states level to do it.
And as much as, like, again, people want to go ahead and make it sound like the Supreme Court's super in his pocket, I still think those 4 Supreme Court justices between Roberts and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, they have rejected his advances. to try and
Roberts
do-
voted in favor of gay marriage, if you remember, in 2015. So he's not as terrible.
No, he didn't.
I thought he did. Who
No,
am I
he voted
thinking?
in favor of the Affordable Care Act.
I'm thinking of somebody else then.
You're
with that.
thinking of the one that Kavanaugh replaced, which was Kennedy.
Oh, there you go. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. So no, that
you.
was the
You're
guy
right.
who actually wrote Obergefell.
That's right.
Was Kennedy.
You're right. Thank you.
So yeah, no, that was. And now I also don't think Kavanaugh. I don't think any of them really want to undo all the substitute process cases. One, because it's widely unpopular to do that, and that's how you end up with people doing what I was saying before, where you go ahead and you pack the Supreme Court, and you go ahead and you expand it to 15, and you add in 6 liberal justices, and you say, well, guess what? We don't like what you're doing. Here's our fucking move. And then now you got to undo all of this. And, like, yes, the argument against that is, well, wouldn't the Republicans just do the same thing? Yeah, but it didn't happen when it happened. Like,
Right.
when they threatened it back in the 30s, guess what? The Republicans didn't come back into power for another 20 years.
Right.
Like, populist policies work for a reason.
Right.
And it's like, all right, if you're going to stand in the way of our populist policies, if you're going to stand in the way of all this shit, we're going to go ahead and railroad you, and we're going to run you over. And I think Andy Bashir becoming very popular and very public, and people finding out who he was, I think is a big deal, because I think he has to run for Senate.
Okay.
Because you need to win that Senate seat. And I think he's the guy who can win that Kentucky Senate seat. He might be the only guy who could do it. And they need that seat. They need Ohio. And they need to figure out who they have in Ohio that can win that seat, whether it's bringing back Sherrod Brown, because I know he just lost an election.
He just lost.
But he also just lost. I think part of the reason why he lost was because he was running in the same time frame as Trump.
Right.
If he had been running in an off-year election, I think he would have won.
Maybe.
So maybe it's Sherrod Brown. Maybe it's Nina Turner. Maybe it's somebody else in Ohio. But they need to find somebody in Ohio that can, like, honestly, Vance probably shouldn't have even won his year, but they picked somebody to run against Vance that was a total fucking fruitcake that could not fight against Vance and Vance is not likable.
Well, Vance is backed by big money and Peter.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that guy's come off like a crazy person too.
Gay billionaire who's anti-gay. Shocking.
Wait.
Well, he
It's like what you were saying before.
he hasn't actually come out and said he doesn't support gay marriage. But come on, there's plenty of that exists.
That makes is that just because he doesn't want to get married and he's just
I
like,
don't know. I do know that Vance is anti-gay marriage. He refused to sign the Respect for Marriage Act.
yeah, but he's also a Republican.
Yeah,
I feel like that
correct.
comes up with, and not to say that I also think Vance would defend gay marriage. I don't think he would.
He would not.
But there's a lot of things being litigated right now. Like the SAVE Act is being litigated.
Yeah.
If they put the kibosh on that in January, then all of a sudden that forbearance goes away.
Well, that's gonna suck for a lot of people who voted for that.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna
Not to be unsympathetic, but people are going to get what they voted for. Good luck to you all.
And it's going to affect a lot of the economy in a lot of different ways that people are not aware of yet. That they don't know that, like,
I'll wait till they see all the immigration deportations.
the tariffs,
the
immigration
food is going to
deportations.
explode because they're going to have to. Overhead will increase and less picking will go on. They won't be able to pick as much. It'll be really sad for some people. Some people are going to suffer, but I hope no one does. I hope that this all doesn't happen. I hope he does a wonderful job, and nobody goes to jail for being woke.
Well, that part I don't think ends up happening because also again there's a lot of processes. That
What's
need to
woke? What they can't even define it. They can't. No, not
No,
certain people. They cannot define it.
Yeah.
You ask them for a 1-sentence explanation. It's a forcing of DEI. Wrong.
They don't know because it's just something to call you. They don't know what socialism is. They'll call you a socialist.
Oh, the one's calling her a Marxist Democrat? Which one is it, guys?
This is why like the left has to lean into being the left, because it's like, guess what? Those are popular policies. They're going to call you a socialist either way.
Well, if she said the answer to the price gouging is regulation, then you're a communist.
Yeah.
Because Hitler wanted price regulation too. But now they're normalizing it. Nothing makes sense.
No. Well, because they're going to say what they want to say
Yeah.
to you, and you have to overcome it. And overcoming it is just accepting it sometimes and just being like, listen, you can call me whatever you want because you're going to call me it anyway.
Yeah.
Get over it, let them call you it, and move on and articulate your position and say, listen, this is what I'm for. This is why I'm for it. We need to have a floor, right? If we give a big enough floor to everybody, everybody gets to run. Everybody gets to do it. If you fix healthcare, if you fix public transportation, if you fix housing, if you fix those things, everybody's able to get like on the runway and start doing things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like there has not been somebody articulating those positions for the Democrats in a long time. I think you had Bernie, and Bernie's 80.
Yeah.
And then you have
Bernie's
AOC.
Yeah.
And then like anybody else in the Democratic Party, it feels like if they do run on leftist principles, they turncoat.
Yeah.
Whether it's Sinema, whether it's Fetterman, whether it's somebody else. Like they just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Well, what happened? You were good, and that I think that's why a lot of leftists are afraid at this point, because it's like the second you follow somebody and you support them, oh, the money comes in and they get swayed.
Yeah.
And
every time.
But I also tend to feel that there's a lot of people who are leftists who just don't want to do the work.
I think that's true, and I think that for the DNC, they really just need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Out of the way. Let the primary unfold. Stop putting up the next propped person for us to be digesting by force. You know, listen, I was all for Hillary. I did think that they picked Hillary.
Yeah.
Before there was even a conversation to be had. I think there was an ascendancy to the throne kind of like idea that they had, and it didn't work for them either. Okay, and I think what they need to do is they need to get out of the fucking way, let the person emerge naturally, then throw your full fucking weight once they become the nominee, and stop with this inner squabbling of I don't like this one for that. Just let the voters pick this time around, the next time around. And I think after 2026, you will see after midterms, you'll see somebody take shape. Some people start stepping up to the forefront.
I think, and
Newsom's already trying it.
I don't know Newsom's the right person for it. But
that language that he used in that video of we're shoring up our legals, we're gonna not an open hand but a close fit.
Yeah,
this is the fucking problem. Talk like a regular person.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make that video with the fucking flowery language, just say, "I'm gonna fight him for you."
Yeah.
If you're worried, I'm going to handle it.
Yeah.
Bring it on. That's it. Oh, there's a great saying. No, shut the fuck up with your quotes.
Yeah.
Okay? Nobody wants to hear your fucking quotes from your calendar on the wall. Okay? We want to hear how you're going to help.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the language is wrong. The idea is right. The message is wrong.
And I for a last thought on that, because I kind of agree with what you were saying before, the DNC has to get out of the way of it. I think the problem was the appearance of impropriety with Hillary. Like, even if, and by the way, like, there was a lot of it with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There's a lot that goes into that.
Donna Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if your thumb wasn't actually on the scale, it looked like it a lot.
It was.
And you have to avoid that appearance next time, because that's why you had a lot of people who were Bernie supporters who didn't come out for Hillary. And then this time around, you had a lot of people who came out the last time who didn't come out this time because of, at least your messaging on the, what's going on with Israel and Gaza. And like, listen, like, we can't get something done right now. Like, Kamala could have separated herself on that issue so easily. It's like, listen, I do not have the authority that Biden does. I can maybe fix this a little bit better than Biden can, but I am not in that position. But she wanted to take it like she was handling it. And it's like, it was
both sides of it.
Yeah. And I think that they have to, I think, one, you're right, the DNC has to keep their finger off the scale and stop doing that, because even with the what's it called? They had the super delegate thing. They kept on counting. The super delegate thing kept on getting counted on like TV.
Yeah, it was dumb.
And it was like, well, we're gonna count the super delegates, but like, no, stop talking about the super delegates. Those don't come in till later. So stop using those as part of your counter for why Hillary's gonna win.
The super delegate system needs to go. I think the Republicans have something similar. It's not a super delegate name. It's something similar-ish, but
they used to. I don't know if they still do it.
It's
because
dumb.
It still only comes in. Super delegates only come in after the first round.
It's
of voting.
dumb. It's a dumb concept. It looks like cheating.
Well, here's what the super
Yeah, I got
delegates
more.
are.
You got more points than me, but I got more special points than you. This isn't a video game.
The idea of the super delegates is like, say when you get done with the primaries, there's not one official leader. How do you go ahead and figure it out then? Because if you have 3 people and each have 33%, and you're like, all right, well,
I see.
That was the whole point of the super delegates, was to say, all right, well, we're all going to go ahead and figure out the convention. We're going to have people who are going to come in and say, all right, well, since we didn't get over 50%, how do we figure out who should actually win this? And should it just be the one person who got 36% versus 35%?
Right.
They didn't win the majority. They didn't even win the majority of the party.
But
so
they won. Yeah, no,
that was the whole point of that. But it's gotten misused. And especially during that election, it was used to kind of like, oh, Bernie can't win. He's so far behind. And it came up also during the Obama-Hillary one, too.
Yeah, and I think part of what I got from people that think that the 2020 election may not be stolen but has questions, or people that think it was straight up rigged, they cite that a lot. Well, the Democrats screwed over Bernie. Cheating comes naturally to them, it would seem, and that doesn't help.
Yeah.
That's their own doing, that people might cite that as a reason for believing such tribble and nonsense.
And they have to learn from that. They have to learn that it's the
I think they
appearance
should
of
address
shit.
it. I think they should address it head on in the next cycle or at some point with their next candidate and be like, I know that you guys think that was the thing, and I don't know if it was, but if it was, this is a different time.
Yeah. And like again, I think just avoiding that appearance of it. Just saying like, listen, it's a free game. We're all doing it. There we go, and leave it there.
Yeah.
But I've already had you here for 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I appreciate you coming and doing this, because I kind of wanted to get your feelings on it. You are one of the more politically aware people that I'm
Oh my
friends
God,
with.
I'm not
in
even
this.
that like plugged in. I know people that are way more plugged into me than me on this one. Plugged into me, plugged in than me.
I thought that was last night.
No. Yes.
But no, like I have a lot of friends who are politically aware, but as far as in stand up, it does feel like there's a lot of people who it's like they either look at politics and that kind of stuff like it's like either that it's like unsavory, or there's some of them that are Trump supporters, or there's some that like lean in on the Rogan game and the RFK game.
I think
and
there's a straddling of all of that, yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of that kind of stuff where it's either like all of them suck, or you'll get some people who are politically aware, but they're more like, you get some of the Jill Stein, like far left people. And I do want to talk to some of those people at some point, because I do think that like getting an idea where they stand on that, and it's like, you guys do realize this is setting you back kind of deal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I wanted to hear from you specifically, because again, somebody who's also going to be affected by it with, the Affordable Care Act.
I hope not.
And all, yeah, well, that's the big thing, is we're all hoping that there isn't this big setback with it. And I'm at this exact moment, I'm kind of hoping that it works out.
He may just not do anything because he doesn't have anything to replace it with.
They also might not be successful because, like you said, the Affordable Care Act is popular.
Yeah, it's very popular.
And they don't have that many votes in the House.
Correct.
They're going to have a very narrow majority. They're also got like 2 or 3 people leaving the House now.
Yeah.
Because, you're going to lose Tulsi Gabbard? Well, now they have to find somebody to replace Tulsi Gabbard.
I don't think she holds a seat currently, does she?
I thought she did.
No, I don't think she does
Or
anymore.
Did she lose her seat?
She lost, not this time. I think she's been out of her seat for a little while from Hawaii.
Because I thought she switched to independent, but I mean I have to
She
check
did,
that.
but I don't think she was in office anymore.
Maybe she didn't rerun after the last
But
time.
there are people that are leaving for appointments. There
Yeah.
are multiple people. So they get either filled, they
Yeah.
probably get filled by the governor of that state, and that's it.
And then they'll have to run a special election at some point. But
We'll see what happens in 2026.
thanks, Jason, for
Thank
coming
you.
on. And
Goodbye, America. Be safe. Be nice.